When Live for nothing. I am a failure, and I love it. Deviant. Die for nothing. I am my own friend. I don't need anyone else. I'm just like you. Deviant.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Carnage Cup number 5. My name is Dia, and I am joined by Mellowcrit as we get to bring you, and I say this completely unironically, Mellowcrit, this is the real deal. The best Apex Legends that North America has to offer right now, with some of the greatest teams from Pro League.
Oh, absolutely. Anyone who's been paying attention, you're going to know all of these names. And we've got some pretty interesting subs in there as well. The mix is definitely a little bit different from what we're used to seeing in Pro League. But even then, like you said, absolute best of the best in North America. This is the final Carnage Cup of the year and Carnage Cup number 5. So what better way to go out than with the top NA teams?
Yeah, I mean, it really is my favorite thing about the Carnage Cup because we get to basically jump in between the weekends of the ALGS and the Thursdays of the ALGS that have been happening and continue their push forward, but with a lot of prizing immediately on the line, which changes the way that a lot of teams play. I actually want to take a look at the teams that we know will be playing today, just so that we can all really appreciate exactly not only who's going to be playing, but how their individual playstyles are going to change going into today. Because we've all seen these folks in a variety of different scenarios, but over the course of 6 games, things tend to play out a little bit differently when there's prizing on the line.
Yeah, like you said, money on the line. We know that some of these teams can definitely come off as sort of single tournament teams that are able to take down these big prize lobbies without necessarily having that exact same success in those matchups that we're seeing in the ALGS. Of course, have to shout out the likes of NRG, right? They've been dominant in so many tournaments, but so far their ALGS performance has been hot and cold, I'd say. And of course, a lot of other teams that just don't get to face off as often because of those group matchups. Now they're here with arguably, I mean, if you look at this lobby, this is easily, if you would have asked us, a year ago, is this the top lobby for maybe an ALGS final? It would be pretty dang easy to say yes.
Yeah, certainly would. And actually, I like that you bring up NRG because I specifically wanted to highlight the fact that we have previous Carnage Cup results to go off of as well. And NRG did crush the last Carnage Cup. They did really well, with Team Liquid slotting in second and having both those teams return today to fight for the title. SSG right below them and also returning today is going to be a really interesting, heated couple fights that we'll have, especially towards these end games, where I'm expecting to see these squads show up again and again. You've talked about the hot and cold performance from NRG, whether they make it to end game circles or not, but I'll tell you who's always in those end game circles is Team Liquid.
Yeah, I love that you bring them up. I think Team Liquid, one of those examples of a team that is in exemplary form in the ALGS currently. I mean, their performances have been consistent. They've been clean. Even the games where they have to kind of rough it out, they manage to find KP. They manage to scrap together points. And that's why you see them so high up on that ALGS leaderboard. So Team Liquid, again, very consistent performers and very consistent performers in both settings. They're able to perform in these 10Ks, in these 5Ks, in these peripheral tournaments, as well as in ALGS. So those are the performances that we're kind of going to be focusing on a little bit. But of course, with so many other squads that are in the mix that are able to take that crown, I mean, you have to look at teams like FaZe. You have to look at teams like Tripods that are kind of on the up and up. You're seeing the improvements from week to week where they're starting to clean up parts of their game plan. And hopefully that success transitions here, and hopefully it transitions to the rest of the ALGS as well.
And when we talk about, the course of teams over time, and specifically narrowing that down to 6 games for prizing, which, as we illustrated earlier, very different environment, I really like how G2 has been looking recently. Their 6-game series and Oversight have actually looked really nice, with them being able to put up consistent performances, unlike how they've been performing in the ALGS. And I actually wanted to pose you a question, because I know that we both watched this past ALGS weekend, and for people who missed it, Furia did really well. I haven't been hot on Furia for quite a long time. Basically since Champs, it's been everybody else is also fragging, so Furia haven't differentiated themselves. Should I be looking at Furia going into today as one of our top teams?
I love that question, Dia, because it actually brings up a topic that I wanted to mention, and it actually has to do with the character selection right now. We're kind of entering another very different phase where a lot of these picks that we're going to see very often, and hopefully we'll see them here as well, I think they've been brought on, or rather brought back a little bit by Furia. The Bangalore Bloodhound combo has been all over the place, when at most we were seeing it with maybe 1 to 2 squads beforehand. And I think they're making that specific composition combination look really, really powerful. And you can see how far they vaulted up the standings with one performance, specifically on Stormpoint on day 7, back-to-back wins, Diaz. So I think that with the way the meta is shifting once again, where they can kind of take advantage of that volatility, I think they're the kind of the masters of, creating chaos enough that they can pick up those kills, farm up the edge, and find those game-winning positions. So Furia stock, I would definitely say, is potentially on the up and up, but as we've seen the opposite, sometimes teams catch up and it's not as easy.
Absolutely, and given the fact that we're starting on World's Edge, it is possible as well that Furia get set behind early. I would consider them, like a lot of great teams in Apex that can put up high point games, to be a very momentum-based team, because being able to carry that forward is always very important. I'd say the same thing of G2 that I mentioned earlier, but who I wouldn't say that of is Dark Zero, and Dark Zero also joining us today. Have had an interesting curve in NA, because they came over twice international champions and have been doing well, but not still in the conversation for those top squads where teams like Guard and Liquid currently stand. Dark Zero's been a little bit quieter recently, and I am hoping that they can find success maybe even today outside of a match point format.
Yeah, I hope for very much the same thing. And we know they can still do it. We've seen them take down wins in these lobbies. But of course, one of the big criticisms when they moved over to NA is, are they going to be able to keep pace? Is this going to kind of make them wake up a little bit, smell the roses to how truly strong NA is as a region? And I think especially early in the ALGS, we are seeing the semblance of that a little bit. But I think it's actually really interesting to see that now that PvP has moved into that coaching role, whether there are sort of the adjustments they have to make to perform in this lobby, whether those are starting to come through. And I think they definitely looked that way, at least a little bit on World's Edge during the last ALGS, but staying consistent when so many other teams are on that improvement trajectory, everyone's kind of clamoring for the same thing, right? Everyone is going for improving, moving up the standings. And this final sprint, I think, can bring out both the best and the worst in some of these teams.
Now, you had mentioned this earlier with the shift in playstyle that we've been seeing recently, specifically as it relates to Legend Select. And one of the things that we had also talked about earlier was the way that champs influenced this, being really heavily favored towards this heavy aggression playstyle. I think that started to change more because while we did have teams accepting that and really thriving within the heavy aggression style, now we've got squads that are starting to sit back in zone, and that's where we're getting other teams like Guard that are really starting to come out and thrive as a high performance zone team.
Yeah, and I mean, Guard, perfect example. Team Liquid, also a perfect example of that. And I think it speaks largely to the power of the Watson. If anyone ever doubted Watson, you should have been woken up to this a long while ago, because the way that that character controls space and the way that teams like Guard and teams like Liquid have managed to cement themselves as very, very strong zone teams that are able to do so much when they're proactive in those deep zone scenarios, they're just flying up the standings right now. So hopefully we'll see that. And I love the dichotomy too. We love edge teams, we love zone teams, but when they crash, that's when the real magic happens, Dia.
Well, let's take a look. We are dropping in for game number 1 of Carnage Cup 5. It is sure to be an exciting day, but this is where the stage gets set, Mello.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of setting the stage, definitely have to shout out our presenting sponsors for today, Boost Gaming. You can look better, you can play better with Boost Gaming, you can top off all your digital wallets, and you can drop wherever you like, be it King's Canyon or any of these other maps with your favorite legends and skins. So be sure to visit pks.gg/boost. Again, that is pks.gg/boost to get all of your in-game cosmetics. Thank you so much for Boost presenting this broadcast. And here we go, Dia. We're finally out of this dropship. I'm curious to know if we're going to see any of these contests, because again, these lobby matchups aren't ever the same.
Keon's down, and it's BR Demons up against the Guard in landslide of all POIs, where we get our first fight of the day. The BR Demons holding down an angle with Messiah on a wingman. Not the SMG that I've associated with him, but that headshot onto Rambo is going to be more than enough for the BR Demons to walk away from this successful. We talked about how good Guard is when they're in zone, but they don't even make it there out of zone 1.
Yeah, they are not going to make it out of here. So for the time being, it's going to be BRD that might get to adopt what Guard has left behind. And Landslide is one of those POIs that, as ugly as it may look, and as, I guess we'll say, light on loot as it often is, it is one of those zones that can give you so much rotation priority. Though BRD, not necessarily the team that I'd put in the rotating very fast and very early slot. We'll see how they utilize that POI.
Now, I just want to shout this out for everyone who's familiar with the Apex scene. We're on board with Oxygen right now. This is not a permanent roster change. It is nothing of the kind. Oxygen are getting their full roster together. I think Oi Senpai was out of the house, so we've got Minus Tempo subbing in just for game 1. No, nothing more. We'll get the chance to enjoy that play style.
Oh, absolutely. And I actually joked about that. I was like, hey, if Minus Tempo's getting a team in here and he doesn't find one, he's going to have to step up. It looks like he must have heard me or something, because he's in here. But right now, outside of the POI, definitely not in there, is NRG right now getting poked out. And they are sitting on 3 white shields on the outside looking in. And they're definitely eating this pressure right now. So having to maneuver a little bit here, might have to switch up the way they walk in at this point, because they're getting looked at from Harvester, and it looks like they kind of just want the zipline to make this rotation. Will they get it off? It's definitely a little bit dangerous, a little bit more dangerous than you would like with 3 white shields on deck.
Wow. I mean, it's not just NRG either, because dropping by staging, you'd expect them to have more than white shields. The fact that TSM only have 1 purple and nothing else coming out of Lava Siphon speaks to a terrible economy in this game. Something about the RNG has gone horribly wrong, because those are 2 POIs that should provide for the teams landing there. It's why we see squads like NRG and TSM dropping in those areas. NRG sort of creating their own wealth, though, it seems, going on the aggressive towards this low ground. Want to get those Evo shields up. Nathan already hitting blues, and with Guild and Sweet likely looking for the same thing, albeit from a distance. NRG have found themselves accidentally almost in their first close range fight.
And it looks like what they didn't have in shields, they made up with Arc Stars. Nathan, I think, had 4 Arc Stars there, getting rid of 2 of them. 2 still left in the bag. So right now, NRG trying to open up that space, but they are facing down at least 1 member with purple shields, and likely that's the side of TSM. So will NRG be able to fight their way in? It's actually CLG, who has 2 purple shields and a blue. So I think even a little bit more difficult than if it would have been TSM. TSM has already made that rotation down over towards the southeastern side of the map. And we definitely have to shout out the fact that dome zones are definitely one of those where you want to get in early, because unless you get one of those buildings to work with, it can be a very distressing end game and a very distressing mid game as well, because so many teams can look at you on the walk up, and I think CLG may be realizing that now as well, as starting to make their way in.
Since they're going to be walking up towards the launch site, they'll have the opportunity to get themselves further with using a Valcult later perhaps, but for the moment, it's Luminosity who's in the biggest amount of trouble right now, all the way south in the map. You can't get much further than this. They're already encountering plenty of nades being thrown in at them, and are, I will say, putting up a remarkable defense, but one that is still draining their resources heavily. Where Diesel got 6 shield bats, I'm sure I don't know, but I'm not sure they'll get the chance to use them either. Tripods are the one getting aggressive here. Deeds, wingman shot not connecting, still sets up the knock for Yanya, and the takedown on Jaguars and Niesel as well. Gent finishing off those kills as Tripods get third-partied almost immediately. Luminosity gaming her out, and Tripods, if they don't play this carefully, might join them.
Oh, I was just about to compliment Tripods, because this is one of those situations where it is so good to get aggressive. None of the teams that are sitting in Dome are going to leave their spot to go push this, really. And Tripods can take full advantage of the fact that there is no Watson on that LG composition, but now, of course, the third party flying in. Again, putting up a very respectable fight here, but Gent, the last one standing, is going to have to back out, does get fully cracked, and is starting to eat that flesh damage. Nick Merckx is thirsted. Deeds will follow suit shortly, and Tripods must now rat it out, run for the hills as the rest of their team gets run over.
And we got just a glimpse of it, as Tripods did have to very quickly disengage. But what I want to bring attention to is the change in composition for Optic Gaming, who right behind them ended up claiming these kills. They've gone back to the Gibraltar and Caustic that this team made their names with. Optic Gaming have decided that at this point in the meta, being able to play your own style is the most important thing, and have brought back these 2 big beefcakes to be able to play at close range.
And it's like we copy-pasted LG, to be completely honest, because LG was actually also running that same comp. So Caustic Gibby out and Caustic Gibby right back in right after, though. It looks like they have a slightly better shield scenario than what LG was working with, and Tripods does actually punish that, is eventually eliminated. Nano finishes off Gent. And look at how many teams are taking residence over on this backside. Again, this, if you don't get one of those early buildings, and those early buildings aren't necessarily always the best place to play these zones, You can definitely take up a lot of space here on the backside, and it's relatively safe, especially with a Watson, because grenades cannot pressure you back here with that generator up. So NRG sitting pretty comfortable. And now they're just going to rack up that loot with Guild on the Loba. They're going to have plenty of bullets, plenty of grenades, and they're probably just going to keep popping that ult over and over till endgame.
I mean, two squads fell right in front of them. There's going to be no shortage of ammunition, of really anything for this squad. And while we talked about the Watson and the defensive capabilities in terms of the nades, she's also got those fences that make it so difficult to push up on later in the game. 100 Thieves, not interested in joining the party over towards the south, have made their way slowly through Big Mod. And I can't say this is a bad move, since they're going to be collecting plenty of cursory loot, one of the things that our edge teams do really like to do. But the shift for 100 Thieves is notable, because I wouldn't have characterized 100 Thieves as a edge playing team until really recently.
Yeah, absolutely not. And of course, running that composition that they did whip out at Champs, still tried and true for them, it looks like. But right now, the Kraber in the hands of Klain is the one doing a lot of this comfort work for them. SCN, I do like their spot because they get to soak up a lot of information. Obviously, as teams walk up, they get to look at everyone and of course lay down the damage. A little bit too much lead on that shot to hit another Kraber shot, but they absolutely need to do this right now. They need to start farming up those evos. They're sitting on 3 blues and have a decent spot for maybe 4th, 5th ring situation, but if they don't get those up, yeah, they're going to be in for very difficult times ahead.
They're not the only ones. CLG are suffering as well. Sucked right back in. Mama's going to eat an Arc Star, and Demi's already down. This Caustic is going to have to put in overtime, and unfortunately for Mamba, G2 are not going to let it happen. Picking up a knock there. G2 have already found 2 and pushed CLG out of the high ground that they had in launch site. They claimed this so early. They had Caustic. In my mind, CLG did everything right and still have lost a fight to the one-way smokes of G2.
Yeah, and G2, a team that you shouted out at the beginning of the broadcast, definitely one of those teams that are starting to look like they're in increasingly better form. They're a very dangerous fighting team, but speaking of dangerous fighting teams, we've got BRD and a Furia. It's almost like we looked at the 3 easily most dangerous team fighting teams in the lobby right now. BRD does get a little bit of damage early on, but Reed's getting pushed.
Oh, he jumps down to finish off the kill with the Rampage. He just gets beamed as well. Everybody covering each other on the side of the BR Demons. Unfortunately, they're going to have to back off now, sitting on this replicator, as BR Demons, having lost 1, don't have the opportunity to really play together anymore. Split up instead by trying to get aggressive.
And I really just don't know how Furia does it every single time. It looks like their backs might be against the wall for a second, and suddenly your teammate is dead and fully thirsted right before your eyes. Messiah also starting to drop very low now, and they are starting to get pushed. BRD trying to defend. Aiden the Destroyer doing what they can on that horizon, but they will soon go down as well. And the last member of BRD, now getting shot from multiple teams, will go out. Furia cleans it up, and Sentinels is on the backside as well.
I think it's just all that real grinding from Furia. They've got such aggressive players that are always looking for angles that as soon as you expose yourself to one, all of them are instantly on top of you. Furia doing a really good job of cleaning up BR Demons as they got over aggressive, now have not just this loot to work with, but a choice. Do they return to the low ground that they previously had and sit there trying to gatekeep squads, or do they use this small entry to try and push into launch site and take squads out that way, rotating down to the south? Both of them very different game plans, and Furia for the moment are delaying it by just picking up a little bit of loot, something that won't last forever, and interestingly enough, has brought them back to the low ground.
Interestingly enough, I don't think we're seeing a team right now that's playing that rock that is right to the south of the vault, right above Dome, which is definitely, that might actually be Sentinels who just walked in there. I love that spot because it could take up a lot of space, and that is the kind of play that Furia has to worry out on the edge. But meanwhile, 100 Thieves worrying about ultimates going up above their heads. They hold for now, though this is starting to get dicey.
Oh my god, everybody's up in their face as well. Newcastle's one-directional shield somehow working against Esports Arena, if only barely. Phony is down, but the Thieves are starting to lose control. Naughty goes crazy, and the sub-in for Esports Arena today is absolutely worthwhile, as Phony should be able to be picked up. A nice scan right back for ESA means that they are not out of the woods just yet, but ditching down onto the low ground. Can Oxygen finish this fight before it's too late?
And the tempo being turned up by none other than Minus Tempo and the rest of Oxygen right now, starting to walk up to clean up the last two members, or rather the last potentially member of this squad. Casellas does get a good amount of damage, but the scans are starting to come through. The grenades are there. Naughty goes down. Phony goes down as well. Capper answers for just a moment, and Minus Tempo is looking for a way into this fight, but can't quite find it.
It did such a good job with the Thermites, make an area unplayable. He couldn't play it himself. Now it's gotten taken down by Capra. And now, taking that fight as Oxygen looked impossible, but Casellos does the impossible, taking down Esports Arena with two very clean Peacekeeper shots.
Wow, it almost looked like Capra was going to make something happen, but right as that finishes up, Oxygen is two members lighter from the likes of SZN now pushing in, and that is just one member left standing. This is just fight after fight right now over here towards Lava City. Minus Tempo is thirsted, and SZN now gets the space to play, but taking a look at our ring timer, that's 30 seconds left, and they are still not in zone, but they pick up a Kraber for their troubles.
Everyone gonna have to exit third-party village momentarily, as we do have to worry about the teams that have occupied the southernmost points on the map, the ones that are farming up placement points while all this happens. We've just hit the top 14. Everybody here already having 1 point, whether they cleaned up kills or not, and SZN really only getting the singular knock to take down the two members of Oxygen. Still haven't gotten that much more. 2 points for them, one for everyone else, and their position on the low ground is a bit risky.
And right now we're seeing a very similar scenario that we do get a sneak peek at one team I was just about to inquire about, and that is TSM, who is one of those squads that is taking a very early residence in one of these dome buildings coming over from Lava Siphon. They had tons of priority on that rotation, and although Lava Siphon can take a little while to loot, it looks like they had their priorities very straight here, already looking towards an end game position, and they are just chilling right now.
The look at Dark Zero is really good as well, as they are one of our other teams set up around the side. Sentinels in the center, and good God, the look from Faye is on all whites as we approach yet another later game zone. We're about to hit round 4 in a few minutes, and to be on white shields right now is... I mean, you're almost just a sacrifice at this point. FaZe have got to play so perfectly, they can't even get hit once, because as soon as they do, everyone knows they've got white shields.
And while Furia can get hit more than once, look at how difficult this is already starting to look. How many squads are looking out towards them, and they are far from ring. In fact, they're about as far from this next ring as they possibly could be, other than, of course, whatever poor squad might still be left on the northwest. And they don't have a Valkyrie here to send off that ultimate, though I would definitely prefer if they didn't either way. So here, this is where it starts to get tough, Dia. These edge teams, this one transition can make or break Furia's game right now.
And they very well may be relegated to just pushing right past Dark Zero. That seems to be the path that Watson is taking around the side right now. You certainly can't go inside Dome, but that is what a way to open it up. The knock onto SZN, and Furia get to hit that go button. Kraber out once more, daring everyone to res.
Oh, and that is horrible, because SZN now definitely is sandwiched between at least 3 teams, and look at the damage going down. His Watson, just a one-man army right now with every sort of artillery under the sun. You just keep seeing the damage ticks on every kind of shield and on Flesh, of course. Kenny going down finally, and just one member left for SZN, trying to hold on for dear life and actually fighting back massively. They aren't able to smoke this out because of the Watson gen, and right now his Watson is trying to do it all. SZN does fall, but at what cost?
One member of Furia down. banner still needing to be grabbed, and unfortunately, we're making it a second one as Zainu didn't quite make it either. I assume burning down at the very end. Furia still have just a little while left to get back into the zone, but Watson, as you talked about, the one-man army really has to embrace that title now, as it's him up against Dark Zero, double international champions, and pulling off something like the Kraber wipe is going to be that much harder on his own.
You're looking at first place champs right next to the last member of second place at champs. And one of them is definitely looking a little bit worse for wear here. But is Watson holding onto this crumb of space for the time being? I'm not sure if this is in zone still either way. So these smokes are about to have to do so much work, and definitely is spotted out. We saw them breaking that drone, that crypto drone as well. So maybe it's just a matter of time before DZ decides to pull the trigger.
Dark Zero finally going to go for it. Knock not actually going to happen. So, third party is unlikely to go down as Dark Zero make a decisive move to take out what could have very well been a deadly thorn in their side. They move themselves into the top 9 squads, securing even more placement points as well as the singular KP, and get a little bit more space out in the open. Something I really don't mind when we consider that they're going to have to move far for this next zone. What's only 20 meters to us looks like so much more when you have this density of teams around you.
And this is actually hard pulled further south, so the teams that might have taken residence up in Dome are also going to have to move. In fact, all of these teams that have taken space in the back probably have the best sightlines right now to make a move. Oh, Jen Burton, you hate to see it. All of those getting eaten up by your own Jen. But right now, DZ does have a perfectly good position, at least to hold. However, the walk-up Dia is going to be mental. They're going to have to go huge here. They have a Kraber in hand. They have a red shield on Zero, and they have some angles on this other squad. Will it be enough?
Breaking that gen means a lot. It means nades can actually find some purchase in this small corner. Take a look at the inside of Dome, which we haven't for a while. TSM still sitting on 1 blue, as Complexity pushing up on them from the outside as well. They're in a similar position. TSM opting into the Catalyst. Okay,
all right.
I like this look, yes. Moving on to World's Edge, trying out some new stuff recently. TSM are giving it to us once again, where we've seen Catalyst picked up more and more by squads around the world. Dark Zero going to have to move their way in, as we talked about earlier. Don't seem to have made their path any easier, but if we take a look at the kill feed, NRG, their next door neighbors, are suffering quite a bit. Sweets managed to find a knock, and Dark Zero are avoiding the attention of the rest of the lobby as SSG bite the dust, and a gen being thrown down, instantly deleted as Sharky has no safety behind this rock. Nades can fly in, but it looks like bullets are enough. Dark Zero clean up NRG just barely over that knockdown shield, and now might get the chance to reset. That Kraber shot not quite landing.
Oh, and the second one misses as well. In the meantime, Sentinels does go down, and all the way from the Land of Trials is Nocturnal, making a mess of this truck. It looks like they've already done a whole lot. I'm not actually sure if that's them holding up in the truck. There's a crack, though, and Jen Burton with that controller aim is just decimating this squad. That might be just enough for them to push. Will the recovery be enough from the truck? And they have to slow it down. That's the difficult part about pushing this squad. They don't have the right amount of information. They don't have that crypto ultimate. They have shields to work with, but for now, a lot of control from DZ right now, a lot of reservation that I think they've been a little bit lacking of in the last couple of weeks.
Now, are Dark Zero privileged, or are they cursed right now? Sitting in this particular spot, they have the opportunity to play both sides of the zone, but also must do it because they're going to be pushed from somebody, whether it's coming from inside the zone or in this RV. Optics still here have to be dealt with. It could be Dark Zero picking up those kills, or it could easily be them falling to Optic. With Duplex going down, it's Dark Zero that do get that first knock. Skittle and Knock both healing up for the moment, and Dark Zero continuing to play things slow, knowing that the third party is imminent.
And I can't help but feel that Optic really should have been a little bit more proactive here with the positioning that they had. But DC now has basically just had to wait out, send out just enough grenades. And now they're taking out TL on the backside. TL was, in fact, holding this roof. They've punished them massively as Zero does end up going down, and Optic is still up.
Dark Zero can't afford to focus this either, as everyone's forced to make their exodus from the RV. They've got a surprise from behind, whipping out the 301. They get a knock right back, but it's Optic that managed to survive, holding on for such a long time. It's Skittlecakes against the world. Can he clutch it up once again? Top 3 squads, whips around the side, taking out TL, and it's going to be Optic in the final 2 once again. What a play from Skittlecakes.
Massive play here for Optic. It looked so dire, but Skittlecakes able to essentially 1v6 it looked like in this case, and now has to run in to the open arms of the final squad here, as well as Watson Fences. Nice clip coming out, but in the end it is Complexity, your game 1 champions. Though I can't help but feel like Optic Gaming really stole that game away.
That they did so much around the outside of the ring. Think about how many squads expired just around that RV. The death boxes that litter the ground to the south of Dome are too many to number. And even if Optic Gaming had their hand in 1 kill of every squad that fell, they've still put up an insane amount of KP.
Yeah, and we saw them there so early. They took that spot that LG ended up losing, and it seemed to have been the right call. I did critique them perhaps a little bit too haphazardly for just kind of holding on, soaking up, and waiting, but that was actually just enough time for Team Liquid to start pressuring DZ as well. And in the end, TL does end up falling as Optic's last member comes out swinging and in unbelievably clean fashion cleans up that fight. And though they didn't win the game, that is, like you said, perhaps a ton of just extra KP that they soaked up in the end. Though shout out Complexity. I mean, we were seeing them a little bit as they were fighting TSM, and it looks like they won out on that final brawl on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, I'm making really good use of the Newcastle. It seems they pulled off a very similar thing that Dark Zero were trying to do, which is farm up teams that had to give up their spots. And well, it ends up working out for Complexity. 12 points in. We've got to wait until after the break to figure out who actually took the lead. Welcome back to Carnage Cup number 5, where Dia and Mello have been taking you through what was a banging game 1, where Optic clutched out second, but fell to Complexity in the end. We mentioned it before the break, and I want to see him now. Let's take a look at the scores coming out of game number 1.
Hey, you love to see it there. Complexity taking down game number 1 with 19 points. So they did have actually a very fair amount of KP on their way to this victory. Team Liquid also claiming a good amount of their own, sitting in 14, tied with Optic Gaming, who got away with murder there a little bit in the end game. Massive game for them. And of course, Furia and DZ, who were both literally and figuratively just looking from the outside in.
They really were. Everybody around the outside of Dome crowding together. We talked about how Optic picking up just one out of every squad that fell out there would have been enough. The fact that they're tied with Team Liquid says a lot, as TL's position seemed even less central than Optics, but they were able to make great use of it, playing much like Dark Zero were forced to, both sides of the dome before ultimately making the decision to try and wipe on the outside. Worked really well for both these squads in second and third. Furia right below them. I don't think you can be too upset about either. For a squad that is really focused on taking fights, the fact that they were able to so decisively take down a squad with his Watson at the helm was super impressive.
And I mean, they were just, pixels away from executing that. I think there were a couple very tragic instances. If we were to look back, you would see that one missed smoke going into that Watson gen from his Watson might have actually been just enough to do them in, because then other teams had LOS on them as they made that push, and ultimately they fall a little bit earlier than I think they maybe should have. And another squad that fell very early, and it hurts my heart to see it, is LG in 20th, because they were in that exact truck deal with the exact same comp as Optic Gaming, but maybe just a couple of seconds, 30 seconds too early there. They end up getting pushed out by tripods and drop a big goose egg in game one.
And, when we talk about squads that were setting themselves up early, I'm also surprised to see teams like NRG and Space Station Gaming not in our top teams, because they did prioritize that southernmost end of Dome super early before anyone else. They arrived there even before Dark Zero, who, by the way, I have to point out a little bit of dramatic irony, did finish 1 point below Furia, despite the fact that they eliminated Furia. So just a little bit of indication there. We do get to look forward, though, as Team Liquid, after placing second in our last Carnage Cup, have managed to navigate themselves to a second place yet again. And while NRG and SSG didn't have the starts that they were hoping for, it's just game one, and it's just the start of World's Edge. So we'll be dropping into our second very soon.
Yeah, and Team Liquid, I think I have to shout them out one more time, because I don't think people may understand how monumental it is that they find a second place there. If you look at the map of World's Edge and you draw a line from Trials all the way to where that match ended, that may be the longest line you can draw on this freaking map, man. So for them to have made their way all the way down and managing a second place finish, I think that's truly impressive. It just speaks to that team's experience. And of course, switching up their composition a little bit from the last couple of weeks, they've slotted in that Watson that I so love. But for a team that may be considered, quintessentially early rotate zone team, they did a lot of work on the edge.
They did, and I want to bring it back to another squad that got hard done by that is also quintessentially a zone team. Guard dropping in landslide right next to BR Demons. We didn't get to see this game, and they are a squad that changes end game zones pretty darn substantially with their close range, comfortable fighting composition. They've got the crypto that they normally run to add a little bit more disruption. Well, we did see a little bit of crypto this game. The fact is that we'd see a very different end game should a lot of our squads that fell early on have made it into the later stages. And that's what we get to look forward to as we run it back. Because the chances that we're going Dome, Mellow, while they do exist, it's unlikely. We've got a lot of other places on World's Edge to play and a lot of chances to see teams shine as they take different rotations into the ring.
One can only hope. And Guard really is one of those teams that can have a massive impact, right? When we see Guard early in zone, Rambo has even talked about this, right? He talks about how the zone teams need to be more proactive. They need to know when to get aggressive. So Guard definitely can change up the game. If you expect a zone team to just sit in the corner and wait, Guard is usually not that team. Guard will push you if they find an opening. And I think that's what's brought so much of their success forward in the ALGS is their ability to be proactive. But for the time being, we need to see them get out of their POI, and BRD is definitely a very scary contest for them, in fact.
They are. We think about mechanics, and of course, you've brought up Rambo. It's worth mentioning because Rambo is a cracked controller demon and very scary. But BR Demons have their own mechanical talent, be sure. With Vayne, Reeds, and Aiden the Destroyer, all of them are squads that, or rather members that individually you should be scared of when taking a fight at the 15 to 20 meter range. And the fact that these two teams are dropping right next to each other, I don't think sets either up in the best case chance for success because they should be working towards a late game finish.
Yeah, and they actually have a sub that they're working in right now. But even so, I mean, that was pretty dominant on drop. But seeing Messiah in the mix, obviously a very interesting little addition to their flavor profile of BR player here. So yeah, I can't wait to see whether they're going to run it back again or whether, of course, we might see Guard turn things around a little bit and sort of change up the state of the game like we know they can do.
I mean, you had Messiah, and it's even scarier.
Yeah,
Messiah terrifies me. Yeah. I love you, Vane. Messiah actually very much scares me. The fact is that, well, we got to see that contest happen over by landslide as well. The rotation through Harvester and that bridge also ended up being a really interesting turning point for a lot of teams, as G2's movement through launch site also caught a lot of folks off guard. I'd be remiss, I believe is the word, if I didn't talk about the fact that despite CLG's defensive setup, defensive composition, we saw G2 breeze through them in the mid game.
Yeah, and I mean, G2 is one of those teams that seems like they're looking in form. They're feeling a little bit more confidence. They're able to execute their game plans a little bit more firmly. And I think confidence is a massive difference in a game like Apex. You need to be confident in your calls. You need to be confident in your 3v3. So if they're able to make these calls correctly, if they're able to stay on the same page, we've already seen what they can do, because CLG is no slouch. They're a team that, in fact, if there are teams that are known for just being able to straight up fight, I mean, Nano is one of the scariest players in the field in terms of laying out the damage. So definitely a bit of a surprise to see them get rolled like that.
Mello, it's time for game number 2, and Guard, they've got a single thermite. Keon cursing the day that he opened that loot pill. Finally gets an alternator, finally gets a knock onto Messiah. Rambo finishing that knock off, but getting knocked himself, as now it's Keon's turn to take to the roof, taking down Reeds and hopefully covering RKN as he runs back to cover. Keon's low, both of them on single digits of flesh, could be pushed at any moment.
Oh my, this is literally on a knife's edge. Unsurprisingly, it's looking really close, but that's one member down for Guard, and it looks like they might be picking him up as well. So now the 3 versus 1 scenario is what we might be looking at. Guard does have to clean this up sooner than later, though, because remember, part of the advantage of this POI is getting out of here early. If you spend the first 35 to 45 seconds just trying to get this team off your back, it is not going to be an optimal scenario.
What a good spot as well. Guard do finally get that knock on Aiden the Destroyer, but I have to admire the creativity to go for that angle and ultimately put Guard in yet another risky position. Like you talked about, though, speed is of the essence here, and Guard have already burned quite a bit of time. Don't have a whole lot more of it, and don't have a Loba to make this any faster. Their rotation has got to be swift, and I wonder where it will take them, as they don't have a beacon here, but somebody else must already know where Zone 2 is going.
Oh, and it's so painful seeing the contest on this POI too, because as is, you're scrapping for resources and you have to share them with your contest. That is tough, but in any case, we will see them eventually make their way over to the exact opposite corner of the map, Dia. We were Dome last time around, and now we're pushing all the way up towards Skyhook, so very different zone scenario, this time pulling right in the open arms of Team Liquid, and of course, a lot of other teams that have already made their way over 100 Thieves with the early rotate as well. And surprisingly enough, Furia also obviously dropping a countdown, doesn't have much of a choice, but they're there early as well.
It's quite funny that Team Liquid get to play the two polar opposites of game for them. One where they have to, as you said, take the longest path across the map to make it in, and one where now everybody is coming to them. Now, we know that with zones like this, Team Liquid do like to prioritize the buildings that are just off to the north of Trials, and it's likely that we see them try and do that relatively early as well. Furia, who may have a little bit of difficulty making it there, actually get to reveal to us that north of Trials is not where they're going to be going, as that would be a little too far north. So I'm curious where Team Liquid will end up moving themselves, because they do want to play at the furthest point, not anywhere where they're going to get run up on squads that are coming up from Countdown, not anywhere where people who funneling in from Grandma's house will just have to walk into them. Team Liquid want to play in a way that mitigates RNG.
And much like I'd rather be crying in a Ferrari, I'm sure Furia is very okay with being pressured a little bit with 3 purple armors already, Dia. And they're here early too, so they're ready to fight. And it looks like the aggression factor that they are oh so well known for is coming out to play right now. Massive spray from his Watson, and they have taken up a little bit of space, but there's another team meeting them.
Furia's rotation may have put them in a little too much peril. Defensive smoke for the second time, and the scan's going to be down for now. I'm waiting on the timeline for that Bloodhound. Oh, but Panda's just got to finish popping the Phoenix kit first. A 10-second delay on that, and Watson doing the same. Means that Furia are going to have to play this with the ordinances more than anything as they get smoked yet again. Their vision impaired and are waiting for that next bit of data.
This might actually be his Watson doing part of the smoking work, of course. Denying the LOS is massive here when you're trying to recover, but it just looks like they can't get an inch of room. And in fact, Zera is going to go straight to the ground with Panders following shortly after. And it's NRG that is starting to push in to finish off this squad. Nathan does get dropped. And in fact, Sweet also gets some damage put on him as well. This is not easy for NRG right now.
No, their Giga flank didn't exactly go as expected, and now they're getting pushed by another full 3-man squad. It's going to be Furia that go out first as Sweet finishes off those kills, trying now to disengage, get a shield swap, and maybe stabilize the team. NRG have managed to do so for now and actually push back the squad that originally walked up on them.
Fantastic work here. They needed to take that space. They needed to hold down those angles, and they actually managed to get this res, though. So far, this zone is an absolute bloodbath. We've already lost 4, including DZ, Tripods, Furia, and at least one other squad. What is going on right now, Dia?
I am amazed that NRG were able to push back a full 3-man that was third-partying that. That's an illegal move from them, as Guard themselves, playing a little bit illegally out in the open, are wrapping around this building to find a safe way in. RE45 picked up for Keon. No Loba on this squad either, so they just raw walked up to a care package to grab this one, as 100 Thieves sit right across from the center. They've actually got a decent position to hold down as well. Not one that'll age particularly well, especially if they lose out now. Guard are pushing in here with a nade that takes out Scurwy.
They aren't quite able to get the thirst. Look how close Scurry was actually from falling, and Anbu just getting absolutely clipped by the turret himself. Rambo flies in. The rest of Guard cleans up 100 Thieves, and that is 6 kills before Ring 1 closes, Dia, for the Guard.
Is the R99 busted, or is it just Rambo? Is the question that we've got to be asking ourselves as even more squads are going to funnel into the meat grinder of Guard, sitting in a nice spot to be able to, like you talked about with Furia, balance aggression and zone play. That's exactly what Guard have been good at up until now, and something they'll get to continue doing in this game. Optics late rotate, however, brings them up from their big mod Lava City landing. Plenty looted up, but with not a whole lot of squads to actually fight for.
And of course, they're no strangers to this. They are more than accustomed to sitting outside zone, looting a mod, and formerly Lava City as well. So right now, making their rotation using that Valkyrie, that one transition that they need to make is still ahead of them, but this will certainly help to get forward a little bit quicker. They have some height to hold as well, which is important when you're making that transition. Because again, if you're on the low ground and you have a lot of squads looking up above you, a lot of people pressuring you, I think a little bit of height always helps.
G2 found an edge fight. It's time to test whether they make it into the top 15 or not. They've already almost lost design, ends up falling to the floor as walking into an arc star changes his life drastically. G2 have to fight this one out as a 2 versus 3 right now, with Chaotic getting almost lasered to the ground. He's got to take a reset as well. Smoke provides just enough cover that FaZe can't interrupt that res, but it's going to be Slurp that commits fully onto it, finding the knock onto Resulta and design once again. G2 down to just Chaotic Munch, and we'll have seen Chaotic pull off 1v3s before. It's looking mighty difficult as he expires in the air.
And the sub here, Snipe Down will not be with FaZe today, but Ozivian actually stepping in a big way, already helping them to wipe out G2. And that's just the strength of the team fighting and of the positioning that FaZe had there. I mean, ultimately G2 sort of walked into two big arc stars that got that knock almost instantly. So with that man advantage, it is really hard to turn that one around. FaZe Clan finds a wipe on the edge, and now they have a little bit more control on the southern side of the map as they walk into zone.
It's the beauty and the curse of being an edge team, is finding your fight at the same time as another team finds theirs. Only one can actually benefit in that scenario, and this time, of course, FaZe are happy that it is them. They've still got plenty more opportunities, though, on the edge of zone to continue to pick up squads like Optic that were a little bit late on the rotation in. SSG, of course, already having their position in zone, still sit inside the next one and don't have to give this up anytime soon. Defensively, really well positioned with things like the Watson and the Seer both.
And look at where the guard has chosen to position themselves. It looks like they're... This must be the most aggressive I've ever seen the guard. And look at the composition. I don't know how I didn't catch this, but they're actually running Bloodhound Horizon in place of the Crypto Watson. So I guess zone composition be damned. They are here to fight, deal. This is a little bit uncharacteristic from them, but they're making it look amazing right now.
It looks to me like a response to the fact that they're hot dropping, just needing to have that extra firepower, and now letting that enable, or rather influence, their compositional and playstyle choices later on. I think it's a really smart move from the guard to say, well, if we have to change up the legends that we're using to win the fight off drop, we should also change our playstyle to match that same composition. I think you've identified it wonderfully, and right now, Guard are playing around it wonderfully, giving us a totally different look at Game 2 than they had in Game 1. Unfortunately for Optic, their look's also going to be different, and not necessarily in a good way. The late Skyward dive has already claimed 2 kills and knocked on this Valk as the last member standing. Doesn't give me a whole lot of hope that Optic make it further.
And even with 6 squads dead, Dia, this is the problem. This is the difficulty with this Skyhook zone, specifically from the looks of it. The ones that are pulling up a little bit more northward is the space that you're able to play runs out so quickly. So no Valcult is going to save you from the fact that you're late to the game. And in fact, that ends up costing Optic their game. 14th place for them after a 2nd place finish in Game 1. Looking a little bit uncharacteristic, but that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes with these zones.
RE45's raining from the sky has also been the theme of today. Already 2 of them in the lobby so far, and FaZe's slow rotation has net them that little bit of a reward on their way in. They don't have a whole lot of cover as they're going to have to crush this hillside and start moving into Skyhook, and we'll see what they make of it, as Gibraltar does tend to right a lot of wrongs when it comes to tough rotations. The chance to reset, give yourself another full health go at things, could actually be the difference for this squad in between living on this rotation and not. CLG, without any of those rotational helping tools, do still have the Valkyrie to make use of, but aren't doing so because they don't want to meet the same fate as Optic moments before.
Absolutely not right now. LG also having a much more extensive game this time around, making it all the way to Ring 3. And they're kind of positioning themselves a little bit here to control the southern side as much as possible. I believe they're looking across towards FaZe Clan. And Albralele has actually lost, or rather FaZe has lost Albralele in the process, and now they're the ones getting pushed by the likes of ESA.
Yeah, this is not a nice spot for them to be in because we know LG's on the other side as well. ESA, we can only assume, have that data and are playing rather slowly given the fact that they have a knock because of the risk of third parties. ESA also not quite landing the shots they were hoping for. Do finally get that crack from Naughty and back off once again, trying to bait LG in, waiting for just long enough that they'll pull the trigger before ESA can back out. They finally find that crack though. Do they full commit for this? Slurp is down with just 1 member left. Surely ESA don't have to worry.
Yeah, and I think there was just a mutual understanding there. LG understands that there's a team in between them and they're just going to help each other out to finish them off. But LG seemingly have gone kind of out of this area as Zien is eliminated in the process. So I guess LG just decided they had a little bit more priority on their rotation and were just going to walk their way out, giving up this southern edge control to ESA.
They've inherited quite a problem child, though, is ESA do not have that Gibraltar that we talked about earlier. The forgiveness that would be given to FaZe. Instead, going to have to make use of the smokes instead. Nice elimination there from Capra. He's so good. Capra blew my mind just yesterday in Pro League, and now gets to do it again. What a privilege.
And I'm sure Phony feels so privileged right now to have the chopper gunner with Naughty on one side and Capra on the other. I mean, what more could you ask for as presumably an IGL here for Phony? So right now, ESA is looking very much informed. Just got to shout out ESA for somehow being able to just constantly switch up their compositions and their players and still succeed every single time.
Nice start from Phony, gets that crack, and like you talked about, Chopper Gunner sets up Naughty and Capra to throw in the additional damage. ESA still have this rock to play off of, aren't threatened by other squads, and despite eating this caustic gas, get to continue to play confidently. That defensive bombardment, though, is another story. They're looking for a little bit more cover, a little bit further in the back, as they need those smokes up again to reclaim this territory. Currently getting pushed, the cracks have been enough. Out come the Valk missiles. Can ESA outfight this Digi threat on the RE45? In the zone, takes down Niesel, and Luminosity Gaming have lost to ESA. Simply can't be stopped.
That's insane. LG trusted so much in their homie, the Zone, but the Zone did not do nearly enough damage to stave off Naughty with that RE45 and with that Digi threat. LG is eliminated completely. ESA owns the southern side of the map right now, but look at where they have to walk, and the panic pings are starting to come out. They have to find a place to play, while the likes of TSM, Team Liquid, and maybe even NRG, so many teams can look at them right now.
Yeah, 30 seconds left on this zone. Doesn't give you a whole lot of time to evaluate. TSM do have their problems beneath them, though, and so a little bit of their attention is being pulled towards that. It's an identity crisis for TSM, as Hal really wants to punish the team trying to rotate on them, and everyone else is going, but there's a squad right under us. What are we going to do about that? Could TSM play together in moments like this that are very, very difficult to navigate for even the best squads?
And it looks like there's 3 people co-inhabiting this tower right now, and CLG being one of them. We know how crazy CLG can get when they have good positioning, but it looks like ESA have snuck in and have a fence to play with. So now Hal trying to drop the pressure here with this Catalyst pick. Not quite finding a whole lot for now, but this pressure is critical. As soon as this next zone closes, so many teams are most likely going to fight for this position, because not everyone can walk out of here alive, Dia, and it better get crazier sooner than later, because the third parties will come flying in.
Playing the outside of this fence line, though, a stroke of genius from ESA. They have such a terrible spot that nobody should fight them for it. That's the dream, right? And NRG, they've got a dream of their own to make happen. Great angle was found initially by Sweet, and a good knock came out of that as well, taking out the members of Sentinel's Guard, actually picking up quite a few of them as well. NRG still with one of the only buildings in play, get to continue holding down market for the time being, and watch everyone else have to play this ridge just off to their northwest.
And this is a huge call for them, right? They knew that market was where they wanted to play this ring. They fought teams early for it. They barely survived another third party that came their way after they wiped Furia. And now they are just sitting pretty right now. 3 KP to their name, but potentially a game-winning position if they can continue to hold it. And of course, that black market certainly doesn't hurt. They can continue to soak up resources as team members die. Another squad that might not be having as good a time right now is TL, who does have Nocturnal knocked and looking a little bit unrecoverable right now.
Wait, why aren't they able? How did this happen? That's got to be the question, right?
Absolutely.
Team Liquid, I suppose, on an unfortunate push, don't get the chance to get their Valk back in. Now, I will say in the late game, having Watson and Seer, if you have to pick 2, is not a bad choice. A lot of defensive capabilities that we highlighted from Team Liquid still available now, and they get the opportunity to farm up these squads as well, still with the potential to put out a really high kill game right here.
And actually, I think the one that knocked Nocturnal earlier on, at least from what I could see in the kill feed, was actually TSM. And yeah, there you see where Holst able to bleed off, finish off that kill. But all of the members of this lobby that are sitting in that building now are going to have to move, and they're going to have to deal with TL on one end, Esports Arena walking in on the other. There is so much artillery going down. This is about to be an absolute massacre, and TSM trying to use the catalyst to open up some space.
I really like the use of the Dark Veil right now. They're able to dip and dive out, creating a second wall, a second massacre chamber, eliminating CLG, but approaching perhaps elimination themselves as more and more squads are taking note of this Dark Veil. Verholst has to jump forward. Reps is down permanently, and a shield swap for Al only gives him another 30 HP to work with. Reps unrecoverable on the outside, but the Dark Veil has done its job. RE45 starting to really hurt around this corner as well, but TSM can't move. They're pinned down in the corner, and they have no place left to play.
Like fish in a barrel right now. They're doing everything they can, but they just don't have the angles to work with. They're getting shot from above and from in front. So another member going down, and the last one standing will be Hal. Cheeky little arc star trying to go through the cracks right now from NRG. But if TSM are able to make it through this meat grinder, those squads above them have to drop, and NRG can no longer peak, but it is sort of pulling their way. This is a very tense scenario right now, though NRG looking pretty comfortable in it.
Take a look at the kill feed as well. Rambo's just been full thirsted, and Guard's shot at an end game circle has become that much harder. You really are hoping that you have your turret online for the end game circle, and NRG needs sweet in this one as well. 2 seconds left as the zone's going to start closing, and it's going to make this reset real risky.
TSM is still up as well. They've survived for now, Dia. They have held on for so long, and I'm not sure about the cooldowns on that Catalyst ultimate, but they might be able to use it again to cause a little bit more chaos, though. Guard, we see them fighting back against Team Liquid right now. Complexity just holding on to this shred of final cover to try and play in, and it's actually Sweet who finishes off Guard.
So Team Liquid are still in this, albeit with just one member, but still in it nonetheless. Complexity playing around the outside are going to pull off the same thing that they did earlier, setting up with this Newcastle wall, eliminating TSMR and RG. But look again at that Newcastle, at where Complexity are sat. They get to watch everyone be forced to exit these buildings.
Oh, this is just an absolute meat grinder right now. And in fact, Nathan going down in the process. They do pick up some KP in the way, but right now, Nathan going down means the push is all that much more easy for Complexity. And they are your back-to-back champions for Carnage Cup number 5 so far. 2 games for 2.
I am slack-jawed right now with the way that Complexity were able to pull off the exact same play twice in the face of everyone else in the lobby. It leaves us wondering, is there counterplay when Complexity are doing this so late? They've got themselves a nice zone, they don't get too aggressive, and then they just jump out and farm the lobby. It looks textbook, and honestly, having watched this happen to professional teams twice now, I don't know if there's anything anyone could do.
And I have to say, I'm a big Newcastle critic, but this is where it shines. We see it again and again. When you're able to get it to that final zone, and when the angles are too risky to pressure that Newcastle shield, they basically just created a whole new angle to play. They contributed to the meat grinder that NRG was also helping there with, but that knock on to Nathan was just the edge that they needed to push their advantage just enough to make the final push. And what a way to clean it up. I'm just so impressed by what Complexity is doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, to make a pun out of it, their name is Complexity, but they're making these end games look simple. And that's what scares me most of all. It's what should scare all of the other teams in this lobby, is with those back-to-back wins, I have no doubt that they've put themselves a head above the rest when it comes to these points. And the points we'll get to look at when we come back.
Download and do it again. Download and do it again. Download and do it again.
Welcome back to Carnage Cup, ladies and gents. We've got 2 games down, 2 complexity wins, and maybe a third one brewing. Let's take a look at the scores mellow before we jump in to the third game of the day.
Yeah, and complexity just continually dominating just time and time again. 37 points right now. They've opened up an 11-point lead from second place team Liquid, who, regardless of, losing some members early in those final rings, continues to hold up, continues to soak up those points, though. NRG also with a big game there, finding themselves in third place overall. But before we get too carried away with the rest of the scoreboard, definitely got to shout out the people that are investing all of their time here with us by telling them about Investor. Investor is the best way to learn the markets and play to win. You can manage virtual stock and crypto portfolios and take your investing skills to the next level. So be sure to visit pks.gg/investor-ka. That's pks.gg/investor-ka. But what a way this is shaping up to be. I don't think I would have predicted complexity in back-to-back wins.
It's funny that you say that, because complexity have been the silent, consistent performers of the ALGS so far. Their Pro League run in year 3 has not attracted a lot of attention. Nobody's like, oh my god, Team Liquid, they're always like right there. What on earth is happening? And they're not like a guard where they're like, oh, how are they always center zone and killing everyone? Complexity are very quietly, often 5th, 4th, maybe 3rd sometimes, but they're always right there. They're always in these end game circles. And the fact is that now that they're taking a step up and actually placing first in both these games, it could have just been a very silent switch that got flipped in the background that's pushed Complexity from being a consistent top 5 team to maybe an indomitable force.
Yeah, and they're looking to make that argument here. And of course, it's a team that's very talented. They have, like you said, that sleeper pick sort of consistency. I almost want to say before Team Liquid had this sort of massive resurgence that they've had where they're, like you said, always in that conversation, in those top 3, top 5 conversations. I feel like Complexity might sort of be on a similar trajectory where they're always kind of there, right? They're always kind of sneaking their way in, fighting their way in. And suddenly when they have good tournaments and good days like this, they just pop off in a big way.
Yeah, they've done so twice on World's Edge and now have the opportunity to do it for the 3rd time. However, after we finish this game, we'll be heading on over to Stormpoint, where things change pretty drastically. You and I have both watched enough of Apex Legends, we've played enough of Apex Legends, we've listened to enough of Apex Legends, that we know in about 20 minutes, things are going to change, and for some of our teams, they're not going to change for the better. Stormpoint's very difficult to get a handle on if you are a team that likes to sit and wait for the zone to come to you. Speaking of zones, speaking of games, speaking of World's Edge, let's jump on over to our 3rd game of the day.
Yeah, and we will be going in there shortly, but before we get there, and before we get to Stormpoint, I do want to say, not exactly predictions, but are there teams right now that you think are kind of on the struggle bus that are about to start making those big switches to get up on the leaderboard? Because there's a lot of teams that we can see in this leaderboard that I think are more than capable of having big games, and they've actually been close. But who do you think is falling short? Who is one mid-game transition away from making it into that top 5 spot?
I mean, I am a Guard simp, so I have to say Guard. I think I would be betraying myself if I didn't. And it's not, what is it called? It's not all bias. There is some of it, but Guard are absolutely a team that I don't think anyone can deny is worthy of the top spot or top couple spots that they hold in Pro League right now. They have yet to play this week, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking at Optic Gaming and the way that they've started, and we'll get the chance to talk a little bit more about some of the other squads, because make sure, I do have other squads to talk about later, but first we got to see if Guard makes it out.
Oh, man, and this is the difficulty, right? Before they can have their big pop-off moment, they have to win out this contest, and right now, Rambo is just holding on for dear life to that last pixel of health that they can work with, and I think the loot is about as split as it's going to get, so this is all that the Guard has to work with. A charge rifle with maybe 34 shots and no scopes. It's looking a little dire for Guard.
I like Bo's charge rifle, but it is tough to work with at this level of health. Having lost their Volt as well, RKN is down. You gotta hope that Keon has brought something to the fight that really provides in terms of this short-range damage. Already, flank available for Keon is getting some good shots down on the low ground. Reed's full thirsted. This is a nice way for them to play, and Keon plays the hero, taking down BR Demons.
That was beautiful. They do end up cleaning it up. You said Keon needed to bring something big to the table, and in fact is able to knock multiple members, clean that fight up. BRD are going back to the lobby. They're going to have to wait out until we hop over towards the ship towards Stormpoint, but what a way for Guard to win that one. That's 2-4-3, and now Dia, that's their opportunity, right? This is where they have to make it count.
Is the R99 busted, or is it just Keon? That's the question. That's the wonder that we get to have coming out of this game, at least. And like you say, I do look forward to their performances a little bit later on. I also have to, in terms of squads that I'd be expecting to be placing a little bit higher, have to talk about LG as well. I know we talked plenty about them moving out of Game 2, but now that we hit World's Edge for the 3rd time, this is a map that LG should be thriving on, despite the fact that I don't think their Stormpoint is shaky either.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Complexity, again, just silent performers on both maps here. I think they can do a lot, and especially in this lobby, they seem to be very comfortable playing against these squads, but they're going to have to take down the likes of teams like NRG yet if they're going to have a 3rd game win. NRG in the process of fighting off a team of their own. It's going to be 2 nades sent down and plenty of high ground for NRG right now.
How is the Seer alive? He's taken so much damage, and there's the angle, taken down, dropped, and RG have found the first chink in the armor of Space Station Gaming, and from the high ground, they should be able to abuse it.
Oh, absolutely doing exactly that. Dropped is, in fact, dropped, and dropped all the way out towards basically just a respawn beacon, hopefully, if SSG can even manage that. But as we take a look at how NRG are positioning, this could be a tell about where this next ring might be pulling. So we've got Dome on the bottom right. We've got sort of Trial Skyhook ending on the top left. Well, we see something right in the middle here. NRG likes this building for holding out, so that might be the case.
Tracking from Nathan really on point so far, as the charge rifles have not let up. NRG sitting in their favorite spot as the zone pulls this way. Whenever you see a staging zone, they will claim Dorito building, and because they land staging, they get to do it earlier than anyone else. They're not going to move from this spot until somebody pries them out with a crowbar, and that doesn't seem like any squad is up to that task just yet. We do have tripods that are going to be coming in from the high ground over by Thermal. Chi2, who are just moving into Hot Springs, and SZN, who are desperately attempting to bypass this whole cluster of teams as they move their way into the no-name village.
Maybe not a crowbar, but how do you feel about a grappling hook as we have a Pathfinder in the lobby? This is that threw me for a big loop here as ZN, maybe as the name states, doing a little bit of a freestyle pick here. They're gonna have to sell me on that one a little bit, Dia. Not sure how that'll go for them, but for the time being, they've got an all right spot in zone. They have control over 2 of these buildings just outside of where NRG is holding as well. So yet to be seen whether SZN can perform, and that's gonna be a big switch up. Yet to be seen how it'll perform.
Yeah, I think, you know, having seen Pathfinder in a few professional tournaments and cropping up in places like the Challenger circuits, I can't help but feel that while I agree with you that Pathfinder doesn't bring a whole lot in terms of competitive potential. His zip lines, his ult, not really that good. You're likely not using him as your only scan legend because you want a little more information. There's a plethora of reasons why you shouldn't pick Pathfinder. But the thing is that so many players play better on Pathfinder. They just, having put in the time to understand this legend, who's been in the game since Season 1, love using that grappling hook, feel confident on the legend, and especially for a team like SCN that are very momentum-based in that way, I can't say that the pick is great, but I also hesitate to say that it's not worth it for them to get that little bit of extra confidence. Yeah,
and I think SZN is one of those squads that would potentially be exemplary of making a switch up that's almost essentially just a comfort pick, like an OG. You know, you love to play with the character, perfect rank character, and they've talked about how they want to be more confident. They want to take fights. They are confident in their team fighting. Maybe the selfishness of that Pathfinder will actually be what gets them those angles that win them the fights. But for the time being, CLG in a fight of their own, facing out towards the zone, that's a big spray from Nano.
Baiting Optic into the EMP as well. Skittlecakes doesn't even get a chance at life, and it's a big boon for CLG to be able to pick up these kills. When they were operating on all white shields moments before, they still have to fight a literal uphill battle. They still have to keep the rest of Optic at bay while tanking zone, but it's feasible for CLG to do these things with the advantage that they already have.
Upgrades, people, upgrades. That's the name of the game. And right now, yeah, like you said, they already hopped up multiple shield colors. At least I think all 3 members went up to the blues. So Ring 1 might hurt a little bit more after the update. I know everyone lost their minds and freaked out, but CLG, really without a care in the world, they're going to camp this banner because they know that taking out a member of any of these squads can be a massive boom for them later on. They obviously don't know if it's Optic necessarily, but they don't care. They're doing damage to whoever decides to walk into Nano's crosshairs right now.
W key in this one. Nano's already done God's work here, but Demi can't give this up just yet. Eaton zone is going to be dangerous for Optic, but Demi needs to hit the heal as well. Single shot, and he could be down despite that shield swap. Mamba backing off as well. If 2 get knocked from CLG, this could be dangerous. Demi barely gets that syringe off in time, and now it's going to come the res. Full scan from the drone as well. Keep CLG safe, and they've got everyone back into the game. They still need to finish off this last member of Optic, but things are becoming easier and easier for CLG as time goes on.
And while it might have looked easy before, you have to wonder whether CLG have the right amount of resources to keep making this happen. That's 2 kills now and 1 res denied again. So this last member of Optic is going to heal up, but Mamba in the wingman will do just enough work. Noct is knocked down, and Optic is eliminated from game 3.
Getting the double swing was crucial there. A lot of other squads would have messed that up, but CLG's time in the Pro League is showing here from a squad that has really had their come up in the past year or so. CLG's confidence has gone through the roof in their play in a situation like this while tanking zone. Yeah, you have to appreciate.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, I also had to commend them a little bit for, I think, finally settling on a composition that you could almost call, meta at this point. I think CLG has been one of those teams that has been absolutely unafraid to seemingly throw darts at a dartboard and pick their character compositions for the day that way. So they're kind of sitting on something that we've seen work for multiple squads, including the Guard. So playing it on edge a little bit strange. We'll see how it works out. But another interesting composition pick that we're seeing here from Sentinels, we're getting to see an Ashe in play.
Yeah, this has been picked up by teams that want to get aggressive. I've seen it on G2 previously when they really wanted to try and get on top of squads. And I like Ashe. Fun pick. Not found the most success professionally. Not saying it's bad. Not found the most success, just on an objective level. Sentinels are going to have even more trouble finding that very same success as second zone is starting to close, and now they are getting actively gatekept by TL in the north. They're not the only ones, though. Take a look at Landslide, and it's Furia that are fighting up against ESA at the same time. Great cracks from Senox on the main screen, though, and this might be the use case for the Ashe. Forward he goes, needing to finish off a kill, and then he gets beamed on the way out. More pressure is applied by these Arc Stars than ever before, but Senox eats the nade himself, getting shoved all the way back, and now getting dropped first. TL have Uno reverse carded this push, and it's just up to Tech, who with an immense amount of damage done, will eventually have to back off into the waiting arms of Sykes, who picks up that kill, turning around on yet another squad, another third party. Apex Legends is going crazy here, and Sykes picks up the knock onto Scarweave and can't fight the rest of 100 Thieves, who come in and wipe out TL.
They were not making it easy, but great timing there from 100 Thieves. They were just waiting in the wings, and Sentinels committing to that fight again. You said it. That's kind of the use case basis. That's where you would hope an Ashe ultimate nets you a squad wipe, but it is not the case. And meanwhile, ESA might be on the receiving end of a squad wipe of their own. Doing their best. Capra, the last member standing. Trying to run. Will he make it?
Anyone can do it. It's Capra, but whoo, out-angled at the end there. It's going to be another pickup. ESA down, 14 squads left, and Complexity entering the chat as TSM hastily leave it. Down through the tunnels, out of Landslide. Too many squads in the area. With ESA done, everybody else is finished too, and TSM get out while Complexity find the opportunity to loot up.
Yeah, and I mean, I was about to say, man, y'all gotta chill. We have not had a moment to breathe. So many people willing to take those third parties, but it is important, right? You have to take those opportunities when they present themselves, though. I appreciate the patience from TSM. They understand that they need to play their game. They can't just throw it away to push a team to maybe find some KP. They don't have the right information to know whether it's the right time to push, so they instead opt to move forward a little bit. Best case scenario, this team walks into their waiting arms and they can just beam them, or truly worst case scenario, they force that team to Valcolt into an unfavorable position. So great move for TSM.
It's going to be really nice, especially when we're still at 14 squads. They don't want to risk anything for placements just yet. My concern is that it's not a very active position for TSM, who already would have liked to place a little bit higher than they have in the first couple games. It would be much better on a theoretical level for TSM to be able to farm up kills and push themselves even higher on the placements. The position that they're currently in does indicate, at the very least, that their confidence has suffered a little bit over the course of the first 2 games, and that their movement into staging doesn't look that hopeful right now. 100 Thieves playing with a lot more that's W key, and while it hasn't actually taken them down yet, well, it isn't 100% the right move in every scenario, it indicates that at the very least, they do feel a little bit more confident in their plays.
Yeah, they were tempted here to take a fight and hopefully play spoiler on the back-to-back champions right now, Complexity, but won't be the case. Newcastle versus Newcastle is not what we're going to get to see, at least not yet. 100 Thieves is in fact going to Valkos, and I have a feeling that Complexity might have to do very much the same as well. So already pinging out those spots. Yeah, this is again one of those make or break transition moments that people love Valkyrie for. They're starting to ping out the spots and they're just praying that something's open.
Playing underneath the bridge, probably an option at this point, but 100 Thieves are going to go ever that bit further. Not a whole lot of places on the low ground, and they whoop right back down underneath the bridge, looking a little more attractive now, eh? 100 Thieves setting up the Newcastle wall. Do get just a second to reset, but unfortunately for everyone on 100 Thieves, the counter to Newcastle has always been shooting your gun and his abilities, and that is absolutely what's happening right now. They're eating a bunch of damage and have to hold down this very difficult to play spot for the foreseeable future. Vaxlon, fortunately, not being focused by anyone else, and even Omnu, who's eating shots right now, can't really afford to be taken out because of how many other squads are rotating in right now. NRG have refocused their efforts and are looking towards Complexity at the moment, maybe shutting them out of the third win in a row, and indeed they will. NRG are the ones to take out your two-time champions.
They get aggressive in just the right moment and are able to take out Complexity, and they still hold a fantastic position, but it's actually pulled away from them a touch. So now they are starting to have to maneuver their way and figure out what's going to happen next. What position are they going to opt to hold? And already the crypto ultimates are starting to come out to slow down these game plans to maybe find themselves a little bit more space. NRG, though, 3 red shields already, Dia. They are sitting pretty up on this height.
And with the Loba, still haven't run out of sniper ammo. They might never run out of sniper ammo. We could run this forever, but the charge rifle, a stereotypically ammo-hungry weapon, simply has no end when it's in the arms of NRG. They've still, of course, got plenty of opportunity with things like the G7 to lay-in shots towards this thermal station side, the southern end of zone, where Luminosity are just trying to make their way in, and Tripods right next to them might unfortunately lose out on a member. Gent peeks again. Well, he almost takes down Niesel. He is the one that falls first, pushing Tripods forward and letting Deeds eat the majority of the damage. Nick Mercs on maybe 10 HP takes down Niesel, but gets mastiffed right back to take out Tripods and put us into the top 10.
Oh, and they're going to start eating zone damage as well. We'll see if they get out in time, but another squad that we've sort of not talked about so much in game number 3 is Furia, who has managed to just fight their way through, do have at least 2 KP to their name right now, and now just have one last squad to worry about in front of them, and they might not even have to push him here. They have the space to work with. They just have to get in range of this cover, and his Watson already utilizing that tactical from the Bangalore. Those smokes are just keeping him so safe, nestled up on this corner, but I think this next move is going to be a very difficult one for them.
LG, as you talked about, with Zone at their backs and NRG at their fronts, have bitten the dust, though, feeding even more kills over to the monster that has been growing in game number 3. Our final opportunity to see these squads play it out on World's Edge, and NRG has been farming up the zone that should always be theirs. 7 teams left, and NRG still have the height, just an awkward angle in the center, really denying them that. And Sweet healing up for now is again going to have Nathan laying down even more hurt with this charge rifle. FaZe right underneath them, and Dark Zero, the mystery squad that was dead in the center.
Yeah, Dark Zero picking this spot up really early. They've been sort of talked about as an early rotation team, and it's been a little bit hit or miss, but when it hits, man, it hits hard. They're in a great spot right now, but much like a lot of these other squads, they're going to have to fight out one last time. TSM, a squad I'm definitely looking at to potentially make a big move here with the Catalyst ultimate. I think it was a very exciting thing to see in game number 2, and actually had a very big impact with a lot of potential, but with a horrible spot to play, that ability can only do so much for you.
Right now, TSM have bigger focuses than the squad on the low ground. Maybe even separating another fight indoors. Guard go out. 6 squads left now as it's Furia that pick up those kills. And Reps playing things slow brings my attention to the fact that it's TSM that have the zone. It isn't NRG. It isn't Dark Zero. It isn't Furia. It is just TSM who sit out here on a truck. Not even one that they can climb inside, that still have the opportunity to play things safe. 100 Thieves barely inside zone and on the low ground as well, have a risky spot. And now it's going to get even worse as they have to face up against Dark Zero.
Dark Zero here surely about to start making this push, and Onmu actually eating damage from behind. That's Furia that continues to lay on the pressure in front of them, and they need to do this to open up this space. They've already taken out Guard, who is presumably inside this building, and now look at how much loot to work with. They have so many angles to work with. They have 3 red shields to work with, Dia. This is looking very good for Furia.
How have 100 Thieves outlasted Dark Zero as well? Down 2 members, they got pushed and NRG cleaned up from behind. Now playing on the bridge with FaZe underneath them. TSM, NRG, and Furia are our kings of the high ground. All of them lasering each other down as Furia sit inside this building with not a whole lot of paths to escape. Both NRG and TSM looking straight at them. And Furia, from the height, have Zera on a sick angle to be able to lay down a little more hurt.
Yeah, and I mean, they have bats to work with. You can see Zera just by himself has 5 batteries still left to go and actually has almost 250 light ammo to continue to lay down the hurt as well. So Furia is definitely going to make a case for winning this game here, but look at how many squads and look at which squads they had to pressure. They still have to worry about TSM. They still have to worry about that Catalyst ultimate that might come down at any moment, and who knows who it's going to cut off. Will it cut off NRG and give TSM a clean fight against them, or will it cut off Fury and force their hand? We're about to find out.
Now note that of many of our squads that are running the Horizon have the option to drop down to the low ground if things get hairy. NRG do not have that option. They don't have verticality outside of Guild and Sweet, but Nathan, is it going to make it back in should it come down to them dropping into perhaps FaZe right next door to them, to perhaps 100 Thieves who sit right underneath. NRG still have a very difficult spot to execute from, and with even less cover, I would say, than the squad in front of them. Furia's building at least provides them the walls until then. NRG have nothing.
Yeah, and in fact, the angles that they can peek are also getting slimmed down as well. It's basically all 3 players looking out of the same funnel of LOS, which isn't great for pressuring Furia across the way, but Furia is going to run into a similar problem here shortly. They're actually only going to have this truck to play, and NRG now licking their lips, maybe considering dropping down to get the KP on their way out of this lobby, and they are in fact committing, Dia.
This defensive bombardment forced them together. Can NRG come out on top? 100 Thieves do go down, but they lose Guild for it. And Sweet playing up on top takes out FaZe as well. That's another 2 squads down, and Sweet maybe getting the chance to pop back up. As we talked about, though, not everybody can make it back. And Furia are going head-to-head with TSM. Time is of the essence. NRG need to pop up and third-party this, as Furia down to just 1 member are trying to outlast as well. TSM are mopping the floor with these squads, eliminating Furia, and with still 3 members left, it's time to look at where NRG must emerge from to stop their reses and to take the win.
And at best, they could maybe get 2 members up with the Loba bracelet, but we will not see it happen at all. TSM are your Game 3 winners, and they do it with the Catalyst intel. What a wonderful way to see that character perform at the Carnage Cup.
It does great at cutting off the zone as well. They showed us 2 different, I like that we called it in the middle of the game, so I'm going to use it again, use cases of the Catalyst, both in game number 2, creating a position from which they could dive back and forth with a little bit of safety, and now in game number 3, just cutting a zone in half and saying, Furia, this is your section, and we're going to shoot at you in that section. It is just so effective, and I'm really happy to see TSM not just using it, but in such a short amount of time, using this pick really effectively.
Yeah, I mean, when you use it to outfight the likes of Furia, who, again, have just been touted time and time again with being able to just roll pretty much any team they run into, that was just perfect execution there from TSM. And honestly, it made Furia look completely out of sorts, which is exactly what that character does. And yet TSM able to coordinate themselves perfectly to punish Furia for walking in where they did, putting up that wall at a perfect time. And I mean, what can you say about finishing off NRG? There was really not much there for them to do, but NRG does end up committing to that fight in a big way, which does net them 3 additional KP that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So great job all around, but great job TSM in that game.
Yeah, all 3 of our Kings of the High Ground really did play that end game well. From NRG dropping down, which an understandable decision given their spot, TSM cutting off the zone, and Furia fragging out all the way up until then. I don't think we've got anything to complain about in the course of these 3 games, and I'm happy that we got to see a game that Complexity didn't win with Newcastle to round us out for our last show on World's Edge. We do, however, have 3 more games coming up, and though they won't be on World's Edge, they'll be on Stormpoint, a totally different map with different playstyles that are going to be rewarded. I'm looking forward to it, and the Carnage Cup will continue on Stormpoint. Welcome back to Carnage Cup number 5, where Dia and Mello have been already doused with action on World's Edge. Yeah, we had a really fun time with 2 complexity wins, and then at the very end, a TSM win at staging, taking away NRG's POI for the victory. Now we get to hop on over to Stormpoint and see how everything changes, Mello. But before we do, I want to take a look at the scores.
Yeah, and speaking of doused, it was actually TSM who doused that final ring in ferrofluid, to win it out. And I think I'm just really excited to see. Every time I see new picks, new legends that end up working out, that's like it for me. That is like peak Apex, when you're just seeing all of these different dynamics that you don't get to watch from day to day and from week to week work out in such a clean and crisp way. So unfortunately, we won't actually get to tab over to our final result or our tallied results, but we will get to look over towards Stormpoint. And Dia, you mentioned it right before that last World's Edge game, but I want to bring it back now. I think there are some teams that might be starting to sweat bullets a little bit when compared to World's Edge, because Stormpoint it's turning me on my head, tends to turn things on its head. So yeah, we do actually get to take a look at the leaderboard right before Stormpoint.
Woo! I love leaderboards, and I love seeing NRG in the lead. That's a joke for any of you who are on Reddit and have seen everybody dousing me for NRG picks. They are currently in the lead, but quite silently, Tripods right up behind them at 39 points, tied with Complexity, have come out of nowhere to put themselves near the top.
Yeah, and that's actually just a big kind of shock and awe moment for me. And it's another team that I think we like to see improve, right? They're one of the teams that's improving. So right now we're really improving their position in the scoreboards. My, what a way to kick their way into this first Stormpoint match. But of course, the usual suspects, of course, Complexity back-to-back wins. We got TSM in the mix as well, and TL rounding out the top 5. And here we go, Dia. We're finally here onto Stormpoint. And before we get too far ahead of ourselves, got to shout out Boost Gaming one time before our Stormpoint games. Look better, play better with Boost Gaming. Top off your digital wallets. You can even pick up full games while you're there, as well as in-game cosmetics. So pks.gg/boost. Again, that is pks.gg/boost. That is helping this thing happen. And we'll get to see some good tests potentially here, Dia, because new map, new lobby, new dynamics. Can't wait.
Command Center's lit up, and so is Dark Zero. 100 Thieves finding that first knock, but they are very split. It's Scurwy against the world right now, as the rest of his squad is on the opposite end of this POI. Jen Burton cleans up that kill with the Eva, and as 100 Thieves sprint to the aid of their companion, they're still going to be arriving way too late.
Oh, and I can't help but wonder that whether DZ had this sort of planned out already, because it's kind of a textbook punish, right, on that split that 100 Thieves knows that they generally do when they're looting this POI efficiently. That's just how you drop. That's how you split yourselves up. So DC getting a little sneaky here, finding an early KP, and it looks like they might have actually started to position themselves to continue to take this fight in a 3v2 scenario, but Onmu with big damage to the wingman.
It's a good start, but everything after that whips. Only 100 damage off of 2 clips, and just like that, Onmu's going to be backed into a corner. No more support, no more 100 Thieves. Dark Zero picking themselves up off the ground for the second time this game, but still in an excellent position when it comes to the rest of this map. No one else pushing into Command Center just yet, as it was such an extended fight with such a long interim between it. Nobody even looked at that POI, and now they've got to start looking south, as every zone team is already starting to pile into Cenote Cave, and all of the other squads, honestly, are in a big amount of trouble if they aren't able to make it here, because there's a lot of open ground as you lead into Cenote, something that some of our squads may not be accessing, as Naughty's already been knocked, and ESA are in trouble up against FaZe on single-digit HP.
Yeah, FaZe fighting for their access right now, so far away from that next ring, and already 2 members down. FaZe, it looked like they were on the front foot of that fight, but for a moment, it looks like ESA has just turned on the turbo. Capra and co have turned this one around for the most part. Al does not have a bubble to work with for the next 15 seconds at least. And it looks like they might actually have been given just enough time to stick this res. That Bloodhound scan is going to give Esports Arena the bad news, but it looks like they might have picked up a res of their own.
Yeah, trading these is not going to be super beneficial unless, of course, Slurp goes down. Instead, the bubble saves everyone and now makes this a short-range fight where anybody could come out on top. Abralele goes crazy, taking down Phony, and with still 2 as an advantage, he's going to take down yet another. The Mastiff, 1 shot left, pops that reload real quick as ESA get taken down. FaZe able to stabilize in what looked like a doomsday scenario.
And what a disastrous engage. Esports Arena actually just walking in 1 by 1. The timing there for the bubble was perfect for Abralele to punish that as well. The overcommit ends up coming up FaZe, and FaZe Clan now full control over this POI. They might be getting pressured sooner than they would like though, and they still have a rotate to make for themselves. They have Crafter and Beacon to work with, but they've wasted a lot of time here in that contest.
I do really appreciate, though, how well this situation, this 50-50, highlights the power of Gibraltar, because in that end game scenario, or rather, end fight scenario, I think is a better way to put it, it became so much more difficult to push up on somebody who could instantly say that it's short range or nothing, that had a Mastiff. And Abralele being able to turn things for the team like that by providing cover and forcing people into his effective range is really the thing that ended up saving all of FaZe right there, that has continued to let them have a lifeline, no pun intended, in this game. As Guard make their rotation through Cenote, however, CLG and Oxygen have already found themselves in their chosen positions. Oxygen, interestingly enough, back running with their full and normal squad as Oi Senpai has joined the train.
Yeah, Minus Tempo has been slaughtered out. Shout out to Minus Tempo for filling in when it was needed, though. Right now, Optic actually losing 1 member completely. That's not what I expected to see, and might be losing 2 as Rambo with that Sentinel shot to the dome of Skittle Cakes, and now Duplex is going to have to make a miracle happen here. It looks like they're not going to try at all, and in fact run over towards these other squads where we know Oxygen has already posted up and plenty of other squads already making their way in. Disastrous start for Optic Gaming.
Nice cell pop for the moment, but that's really the only thing that we're going to be able to say about Optic for the time being, is Skittle not going to be able to be rezzed more than likely. Team Liquid also running without 1 member. Make it 2, make it maybe 3 as Nocturnal gets taken out, and TL, in a surprising turn of events, try and commit to a building that they had no right for. CLG rightfully take them out, but a very surprising call by Team Liquid, who normally have such a tight read on what other squads are doing.
And CLG has 3 purple shields to do it, so definitely not struggling in terms of Evo shields. DZ now has to answer a fight of their own, and they're already having to commit this ultimate from the Bangalore. DZ actually has great angles to work with, though. They're going to commit that ultimate, but it may be too little too late, as 2 members already going down and one of them fully thirsted.
The split that killed 100 Thieves and the finisher at the end. It ends up dooming Dark Zero as G2's heavy fight, double key, or I should say forward left stick play style, ends up netting them an additional 2 points. Zero, much like Optic, is going to be the last member standing, or rather is going to be just the 1 member standing for the Dark Zero team. And now that they've got a moment to reflect, Dark Zero will have to be really careful about how they approach Cascade in the future, since losing 2 members this early into the game puts them in placement point territory or bust. And honestly, with SSG coming up behind them, it might just be bust.
And we've talked about it, right? I fumbled those words earlier, but you have to understand how much Stormpoint turns the tables on so many of these squads' game plans. We're seeing OXG in a decent position earlier, though they are starting to get pressured. Wow, I cast a curse there before I even talked about them, but I was going to mention that OXG is already in an early spot that I think is very playable, and they have quite a few resources. They have 2 purples and a gold shield to work with as well. Maybe not tons of ammo from the looks of it, but OXG already looking strong. CLG already finding a really nice bit of KP from the likes of DZ. And I'm curious to know if Furia might be another one of those squads that's about to rain down on many of the top of the leaderboards parade.
Speaking of just throwing in a little bit of damage, raining that DPS in, we got a fuse in the lobby as well, with the BR Demons starting to push up here. Messiah gets that initial break on the fences, taking down Optic in the meantime, it seems, as Complexity was actually what they found, but in the meanwhile, TSM picked up that last member of Optic. Oxygen popped out of their building to loot some of the boxes of TL and get a little bit of poke down. While they did find just some damage in their favor, the loot is going to be the real benefit of their brief foray out into the wilderness.
And it looks like BRD has actually whipped out the Catalyst themselves. OXG making great use of these angles that they have right now. That's going to be a knock onto a member of Sentinels, a knock onto a member of Complexity as well, and Rambo finishing off that squad. Complexity is out of the map. They will not get a win on their first foray into Stormpoint here, and there are 2 Catalysts on the map. DSM running it back.
I'm blown away by the fact that Complexity had the gall to climb that, to go for height in the face of what they know is at least 2 squads looking at it. The fact that they're gone is unfortunate, but an expected result of the way that was played. Osprey style, SZN, and the like, all sitting together with their continued unorthodox comp. We saw them jump pad over everything that was happening in this southernmost end of Cenote, and now inside of these towering rocks, they do have a temporarily defensible position, if not an easily defensible one.
If there's anything that's certain about some of these non-ALGS tournaments, it's that chaos reigns, and it looks like Klein is about to make chaos happen with those jump pads. Again, what can you say about this composition other than we're just hoping SZN is able to carry themselves with their talent alone? We'll see. We'll see. Don't want to judge too early. You never know what can happen. But we don't even have the likes of Fury in the mix. FaZe is still on the outside looking in. NRG still hasn't had their impact on this lobby, but Guard is that squad that we've been talking about that can have that pop-off moment. They've already taken up so much space. They have that Watson to continue to lock down so much of that northern side of this ring. So they have a decent spot right now to work with as well.
Bro, like, this is another Complexity situation where I'm looking at the play going, well, yes, you are in the line of fire of a lot of squads. And the thing is, in this case, Sentinels didn't have that much of a choice, as they were being run up on from Cenote Caves. But already this rotation in, this difference in playstyle, has punished a lot of teams pretty early on. That's a very long-range shot, Gildersons. I am very impressed.
Yeah, shout out Guild with that G7 scout, and that was just a G7 moment there for the last members of Sentinels. And I think NRG is definitely on the up and up right now. They've had a couple good games, but they're still fishing for that game win. So we'll see if they can find it here. A team that is very unlikely to find a game win right now is Dark Zero, with Zero being their last member, and they've been solo for a little bit. Just hanging out right now, kind of keeping a low profile. You know, you don't want, lone agents don't want to get found out, you know, DS. So they're just playing small, playing for that late game, trying to sneak their way in. TSM, though, playing for kills right now.
Going forward and finding that full thirst. It's going to be SCN in their crosshairs, and Octane Speed will not take them out of the line of sight of reps. TSM find 3 quick kills, actually make it 2, as Oxygen ended up picking up one of them. The TSM's confidence in that play, I think, highlights the both problem and blessing that we talked about earlier with the composition of SZN. It's a very solo-focused comp, and if they're in the line of fire of one team, they're going to get melted. This composition, this Pathfinder Octane Valkyrie, thrives when you're all able to take individual 1v1s and win those. In a case like this, in a comp game where running through the open can take you down, it's simply not the case.
Yeah, you're not really going to get away with that unless you catch a team extremely out of a position or just very split to the point where you have 3 individual fights going on. That doesn't happen often in competitive Apex Legends, as you put so fantastically, Dia, and I think that's just what happens. TSM recognizes that they can execute, they can punish, they can look for that KP. They have to be proactive because they're in the zone right now, and KP really isn't just going to walk into them, at least not till a little bit later here as the Valk ultimates start to pop. NRG making their rotation now, and it looks like FaZe Clan may have to do very much the same shortly after.
I've got to appreciate the way that Zero has played this out. Sitting inside of this IMC armory, cleaned up a lot of the loot there. NRG actually getting knocked. Might have to hold the point, as I don't think they're in danger. Reset's going to come in. But Zero able to hold down that IMC armory, clear out the whole thing, and then play it as if they are a full squad, as if he's got 2 other members of Dark Zero with him. Pushes NRG all the way into zone. They don't want to take the gamble that they only see 1 person, but it is in reality 3. Instead, preferring to respect that. Although, this gambit may end soon. With 12 teams left and with round 3 starting to close in, Zero cannot tank the zone, and NRG do sit in the perfect position to gatekeep the, quote, 3-man squad of Dark Zero.
They're gatekeeping behind, they're terrorizing the front, and okay, all right, listen, I was gonna say I really hope FaZe doesn't just coin flip Valk out their way in, but just bubbling up that Trident is another way to do it, and albeit unorthodox, it's a very clean way to do so. They actually find a building that I'm very surprised is empty, and FaZe, from one moment to the next, they're in endgame position.
Yeah, a lot of love for that strat. That was really clean, and unfortunately, this one isn't, as SSG are going to contribute to yet another elimination. Dark Zero gone now, finally. Their last member picked off, and we're into the top 11 teams at this point in the game. SSG have this care package right next to them that's going to be available. A great spot on the high ground, although I will say it isn't the high ground that Guard have had up until now, and that's something we've got to look for as the zone is going to continue to pull us further into the south. It is Guard that are the, shall we say, Obi-Wan Kenobi of that area.
Love it, Dia. That's a perfect way to put it. And right now, SSG is holding up a lot of this sort of northeastern side, but whether they'll be able to hold it or for the long term is an entirely different question. I have to ask, I don't know if I have tabs on Furia right now. Is Furia still in our conversation? Because those are sort of the edge demons that SSG would have to worry about, but they're not having it. They're actually just going to Valkylt here, and I have to question this play a little bit. We'll see how it works out, though.
Taking them into the south. Looks like the roof is open, so SSG's gamble pays off, and it not only gives them this spot to play, but it gives them the loot that Complexity left behind while they sit in the line of sight of Oxygen. There's just a wall that they can put in between them as long as they don't drop down, as long as they're not forced to climb this building. It's a safe spot for SSG that, as you talked about, was unlikely, but that they found nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes those gambles pay off, and I will say this field is a little bit slimmer than I think we're used to seeing. 11 squads here, but I do have to shout out the fact that it is Ring 4. NRG starting to get aggressive to try and find a little bit of endgame KP, and they do end up finding a large proportion of that, but now the third party has come in, and Nathan is down.
That's difficult too, since it's TSM pushing in. Nobody that NRG can just ego fight with. They sent Sweet out, say, "Live, my little bird," and throw him out of the building. But he's thinking about going back, thinking about how we can play this one out. There aren't a whole lot of spots that are safe to position in for NRG at the moment, especially not with G2 coming up, especially not with the Bloodhound scant that we know are coming.
Yeah, and the Bloodhound scans will come in due time because there are many of them, many more than we had seen at the beginning of this Year 3 season. But so many teams are being so effective with them. G2 definitely a team that I'm not surprised to see on that composition. Their team fighting is great. They have controller players that are able to just fry when you get to those mid ranges. So for them to be able to just get that vision advantage, able to protect themselves from those sight lines that are deep into this zone, G2 have a spot to play for now. Whether they can move out of it and whether they can have even more success by eliminating more teams, that is the question that they will have to answer shortly. A minute and 15 seconds left before Ring 5 starts to close.
Already 7 kills for this squad. They'll have both their smokes up by the time they have to rotate in. And if we think about the teams ahead of them that would otherwise gatekeep, SSG, Oxygen, both in these buildings, both of those squads are going to have to be looking elsewhere as well, vacating the premises themselves. The longer that G2 can stall, the more they can wait for other teams to rotate first, the better position they'll be in. Same cannot, unfortunately, be said for NRG, who don't get a chance at life anymore, being cleaned up now and moving us into the top 7 teams.
Yeah, being taken out by none less than Messiah. Shout out to Messiah, who's actually going to be playing shortly after the Carnage Cup in that Challenger Circuit #2 final. So shout out that early practice that Messiah is getting in here with arguably some of the highest caliber lobbies that you can find in the world of competitive Apex Legends. And Dia,
Don't even
in
argue
the
it, just
world
say it.
of competitive Apex Legends, this next moment is easily going to be of the most exciting ones when all of these teams crash into each other and no space left to work with. We know that there's a catalyst on the side of TSM, and it looks like the Valkylt is going to be the answer for at least one of these squads.
I'm expecting that Dark Veil to be used, as you had mentioned before as well, because TSM do need some sort of way to cut off sight lines onto them and separate themselves from G2 so that these squads aren't mutually assuring each other's destruction. G2's scan reveals they've got a little bit more space than they would have otherwise bargained for, and now Beast the Hunt comes out, making them a big threat to any squad looking forward. Rotating in early, they're going to be putting themselves directly in the sight line of TSM, setting up a potential third party here, and this is a very concerning decision.
And they're starting to get naded out as well. They're able to just sneak in, but the grenades weren't there in time. They've answered back with decent damage of their own. Design with the hipfire, trying to salvage this position for G2. That shield swap is not accessible because of that tag as well. So Chaotic ends up having to run, find a corner to play out of. Does manage to knock down Nano as well, but in the end, CLG cleans them up and G2 is eliminated.
Chaotic is a monster, but not monstrous enough. TSM didn't even third party this, though. Taking a look at the map right now, they've chosen instead to play the rocks right next to Guard and right next to SSG. BR Demons taking a reset on this low ground. We're trying to pick up Aiden, but we're unable to. And now, wait for just a moment to be able to try that again. They will have smokes available in the next 7 seconds, but more importantly, they'll have a safer position. Ooh, don't hit that zone. Ooh.
Yo, getting him out of the way, but that was literally out of the frying pan and into the fire. They're going to survive for now, but they have to get a full reset on to this member before they walk in. I think they're gonna have just enough time to do it, though the angles are being held down rock solid on the other side by the Guard, by the last few members of SSG, and right now their right side is about to be pressured by that Dark Veil from the Catalyst on the side of TSM.
It's a smart Dark Veil to use as BR Demons now get to split this zone in half, popping back in. It's going to be the knock onto Mamba. BR Demons using this cooldown so well as they now get to play the outside of this fence line, evading the sightlines of SSG, taking out CLG, moving themselves into the top 4.
And I misspoke. That was actually Aiden's Dark Veil that is being used to cut off CLG fantastically there. So we've yet to see the Dark Veil from TSM, who is currently falling up on this height. They contested it, but they are on the losing side of it now. Imperial Hal, the last member standing for TSM, going to try and make magic happen here using this Dark Veil and their Nog team member as their final bit of cover. And the wild shooting through this Dark Veil is actually doing just enough to maintain this pressure, but TSM remains. TSM has not been eliminated yet.
It's a nice scan that comes out at the end as TSM do fall, so does that Dark Veil, and guard sidelines get opened up. Keon automatically finding the knocks onto BR Demons, leaving Reeds as the last member. It's the Danger, and Danger gonna come from this high ground as SSG will be dropping down shortly. Guard still right below them. Top 3 squads, and we're about to move it into the top 2 shortly. Just the 1 member left as BR Demons are gone. SSG 2-man have to drop down, but it's right into the sightlines of Keon, of Rambo, of RKN, of all of the guard, and Zenile isn't gonna cut it. It's gonna be the guard taking game number 4.
Stand guard. They take down the first game of Stormpoint. They did end up losing 1 member to a knock earlier, but it was far from the end of the line for them. And in fact, the end of the line is a game win. There it is, Dia. We shouted them out. We talked about it. The big breakthrough performance that they knew they were capable of. We see it here in the first game of Stormpoint.
I mean, you know what I'm going to say. I'm obviously happy with it, right? The guard, a very nice performance there, and even picking up a nice amount of KP with the high ground that they were able to secure, transitioning it into a slightly safer position later. But they weren't the only squad that impressed me that round. We talked up teams like BR Demons and TSM, who both, with their individual uses of the Catalyst, bought themselves crucial seconds and made game-changing plays.
Yeah, and I think it's great to see, again, very refreshing, because a lot of the opinions surrounding Catalyst have been that it's very underwhelming, right? She has not had as big of an impact as maybe people wanted to see, at least after the initial reveal of her abilities on paper. But check it out. 2 squads making great use of it. Of course, they have to maneuver the mid game effectively to get her there. But once she's there, again, I said it once, I'll say it again, chaos reigns, and it reigns in the favor of both of those squads in some instances, though. In the end, the guard stands tall, and they stand with a game win now under their belts for Carnage Cup number 5.
Now, of course, before we had jumped into this game, the guard were not in the top 3. They were relatively close, sitting at, I believe it was 6th overall, but NRG were in the driver's seat with 42 points, and they, while not performing up to the level that they might have hoped to, still did not slack off, picking up plenty of kills that game. For a look at the scores, we're going to have to wait until after we come back from a break. That's the teaser we're leaving y'all with, and we'll see you for Game 5. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Carnage Cup number 5, and hey, we're about to jump into game number 5, so in a way, this is really, really special. I am Dia, joined by Mellowcrit, and since we are about to jump into that 5th game on Stormpoint, I do want to take a look back at our 4th game that we did just see Guard win, and appreciate the ways in which these different teams approached these final zones. We talked about the last couple squads, the way the BR Demons, again, really impressed me. Big fan of the way they played that. But SSG flew under the radar, or perhaps over all of Cenote Caves, at least initially, and stuck out to us like a sore thumb on that roof. How on earth did they transition over to being above Guard?
Yeah, you have to wonder. I was actually just thinking the same thing. You know, I'm very quick to critique some of those Valkyrie ultimates that, again, if that were end zone were a touch more crowded, I think is a little bit more disastrous, but they're able to just sneak their way in, and they sneak their way into that top 3 scenario by taking that high ground above Guard. Again, how they managed to do it, that's beyond me. That speaks to their experience. That speaks to their maneuverability, their raw ability as a team, and of course, using their composition to their advantage where they can. So great job by them. That was, again, a little bit of a gamble, but when it pays off, when there's enough room in those final zones, they can get so much value out of it, and they did exactly that in game number 4.
Now the leaderboard that I teased you guys with from game number 4, available now. We'll take a look. NRG sitting in first place, still unshakable, but now perhaps a little bit of their jimmies rustled as TSM are coming up right behind them with 44 points. And Complexity still sneaking up after those first 2 wins, sit in the top 3 with 41.
Yeah, and it looks like we got a little bit of a shakeup here, as you said, and I have to mention the fact that TL now kind of has fallen from their second place kingdom all the way down to 5th right now. Just a bit of a lackluster game there, but we know that they can pick it up. We know that they're very capable on Stormpoint when they have good games, though. Squads like SSG are starting to bring up the rear, are starting to make their case for that top 5 and even potentially top 3 finish, but NRG is starting to really separate themselves from the pack right now. They're going to make it increasingly more difficult for squads to catch up.
They certainly will. I'm noting, of course, the complexity is really my main focus here because of what we talked about at the start of the day. I'm going to call it around game 2 that we really started to bring this into the forefront. But complexity, very good team. It's been sitting top 5 consistently. And what I'm seeing right now is that even after 2 amazing games on World's Edge, they're starting to creep towards just that top 5 again. It isn't a bad thing. Being a consistent team is not a bad thing, but I sure would like to see Complexity pop up to the top because we want the best for these players, and of course, they sure would like a slice of the prizing as well. We are going to jump into game number 5 in just a few moments. Legend Select going on right behind us right now.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think that every great player deserves their limelight. They are definitely great players. And whether this is the tournament where they end up ascending to that top spot, to a victory, well, they're going to have 2 more games to prove that idea as we jump into game number 5 for Carnage Cup number 5. Before we start all of the early game fighting, we know, of course, that Boost Gaming is part of the only reason that we're here. If your account needs a pickup in-game, you need to check out Boost Gaming. You can get everything from cosmetics to full games, DLCs, whatever you might need to boost your game. pks.gg/boost. Again, that is pks.gg/boost. Thank you, Boost, for being our presenting sponsor for Carnage Cup number 5. And we're about to hop into our contest, Dia. And I have to say, maybe something went by the wayside in my just game awareness with how much was going on, but Furia, another squad that was notably absent from that final ring. They're a squad that is, I think, historically known as a Stormpoint performer. Curious to see what happened in that game and whether they're going to be able to clean it up and bring it back for a big rally in the last 2 games.
And we'll keep tabs on that squad going into this 5th, this penultimate game. Already, though, they are not the ones that are falling. TSM in a fight up against SZN have gone 1 for 1. And with Hal, the Catalyst player on TSM, down. And DZ dropping down as well onto what looks like was a stacked up 100 Thieves. We've got plenty of fighting going on early. Ooh!
Ooh. And that fighting was just enough to break the game, it looks like. So we'll pop on over right now to Esports Arena, who is in that contest. Are we seeing this correctly? Yeah, they are in that contest, and I believe it's Optic Gaming who drops here. So already taking out to the skies, Phony with a nice bit of damage coming out with the flatline. They're looking for these angles. They have the early damage, but can they clean it up?
Clean 100 so far and double swinging. Dark Zero in their own engagement continue to bring us the action over by Command Center. With so many teams fighting, it's a surprise that we haven't gotten ourselves down to 19 just yet, but ESA are testing those limits. And out comes the frag, and Phony's able to hit a bat for just a second, getting that edge in the HP, and now looking for the finish off. 301 flat line is absolutely the loadout you would want, and a really creative use of the gravity lift as well opens things up to get this finish. So look for a little bit more damage, but he's getting swung on from behind. Phony fries right back as 100 Thieves drop elsewhere in the lobby. It's Command Center that is full of blood, and Mill may be running very soon. Knocked full thirsted. Phony still looking for these shield swaps, baits in yet another fight, and now drops down to the low ground to see if he can finish off this kill. Door in the way. It's time for slow heals, and we are coming down to the wire over by Mill, where there may be third parties incoming.
Oh, that is ridiculous. This fight has taken way too long. We're already down to that ring 1 closing. It looks like Optic is the one that's going to have to step on off. Phony, what a way to hold it down for their team. And now the push is coming in, the re-engage, but I think it's too little too late. Phony just continues to rally with so much damage coming out, and Esports Arena will win the Mill contest, but was it in time? Will the third party come through? It looks like it's not the case, and they hold strong.
Guys, clip that. Watch it again. Phony just schooled. That was such a good 1v1 at the end, and outmaneuvering, and we may get to see a very similar thing happen over here. Down by Barometer, it's Guard that have lost one. RKN is down. With still Keon and Rambo in the fight, there's a chance. Rambo's down, and they've been taken out by Messiah as well. Guard on their last legs with Keon on a single digit of HP, is able to pop a bat for a moment, but is getting climbed on, getting scanned, is getting their exits cut off, and on the Watson, there's just not too much you can do. Keon's heading for the hills, running away from the likes of CLG that have now popped in and have turned this into another 3v3 up against BR Demons.
Dimmy does get the knock onto Aiden, but it is traded out as Nano ends up going down. The Massive trying to do work and does just enough work to drop reads, and they get the full thirst as well. So while Messiah is off, finishing off Guard, it's actually going to be CLG that takes the better part of that fight. Yet another fight breaking out here. Actually, the back end of it, NRG wipes SZN from North Pad. So much fighting. The Storm Point is the just breeding grounds for violence right now.
That was a really impressive show, especially with that last shot on SZN. Guard taken out entirely, and after winning the 4th game of the day as well, they won't get the chance to strut their Storm Point stuff again. The zone prediction, however, seems to have been on point, as they were one of many teams that popped into this area, and that is unfortunate. That is a real shame.
Man, I don't know what it is about that. We saw it in game number 1 with his Watson on the walk-up trying to fight DC. It just cracks me up every single time, because you think, right, you have that gen, it's going to protect you from everything. It's also going to protect you from yourself. But CLG here does hold strong, and they deny Guard that early game spot, or rather that late game spot that they wanted to take early. So the prediction here from Guard ends up biting them. BRD doesn't give it up, and CLG there with the punish as well. CLG, in one way, responsible for 2 eliminations here, and we're already 5 squads down. Ring 1 hasn't even closed.
We might jump down to 6 soon, as Complexity was in big trouble up against G2. Our kill feed revealing that as Sentinels make their way down to the south end of the map, they find themselves inside Ring 1 with a beacon and a crafter right next door. It's a tempting proposition, and one that they may make use of, as Complexity do end up dropping off the face of Stormpoint.
That is unfortunate. So much fighting indeed. I don't know how crowded this endgame is going to end up looking, especially if it does end up going the way of Barometer, because there is a lot of open space out on that POI. A lot of nooks and crannies that people can get away with playing, especially when they employ things like the Bangalore that can ruin the sight lines of teams that are there early. And just from looking at the kill feed, another team that might be having their sight lines and their game ruined right now is Team Liquid. They might be a member short here, but in the meantime, we get to see Furia. Yes, perfect. It's like the Observers are reading my mind today. Shout out Observers. Furia, a team that was notably absent from that game 4 late game, is pretty well looted up here. They like to play this edge, but will they make their way in? We're going to find out here shortly.
This is an extraordinarily late rotation. This is not even like, oh, we're kind of playing edge, ha ha ha, we're so funny. Like, Furia are actively just not participating in the game for as long as possible. When you rotate all the way up to Lightning Rod in Zone 1 that's pulling down to the south of the map, there's just no two ways about it. You're not going to find anyone, or at least that would be the imaginings. The nice thing that you do have, though, is the promise that you're going to encounter squads last. When Furia do eventually make their way in, there isn't going to be a third party.
Yeah, I was going to say they are the third party, if anything, and usually they're just able to wipe squads. There's a reason why somehow, some way, even though, like as you said, they're not running into squads early. They're not even running into squads in the mid game. They're not running into squads at all. And yet, when we see them in those final rings, they have that KP to flaunt. They have, you know, almost 2 full squad wipes. They are the ones who knock. They are the ones that show up to your spot that you feel so comfortable and oh so defensible until Furia decides to take it from you.
Oxygen going down as ESA claim yet another full squad wipe. They've barely even moved from Mill. They've moved down into, I'm trying to make this a thing, Mello. They've moved down into Millage and have claimed a few kills. That's 6 points that ESA got at this start of this game that now is going to push them even further up the standings. I want to note exactly where they were going into this game. So let me see if I can find it. 15th with 14 points. They've already pushed themselves above that 20 mark and are moving into top 10 territory. Their storm point actually looking really clean so far.
Yeah, and this is the moment, right? These are the moments where they have to take advantage. When you swap up that map, you can swap up everything. I mean, truly everything. You could swap everything up from your gameplay to who you decide to fight to when you decide to fight. And so this is a great opportunity for them to move up the standings. On the outside looking into that top 10 spot is not a terrible spot to be, but quickly running out of games for them to do it. So they're going to have to go huge here. In fact, many squads are going to have to go huge here. Tripods, another team that has sort of missed out on a lot of those points that they might need to find themselves in the top 10, top 5 scenario. I think top 10, yes. Top 5, maybe not so much, but a really early spot that they have to use to their advantage to punish all of the rotates that are coming in late.
Appreciation for our observers, by the way, who in the top left of your screen have brought up the map for everyone to peruse. It's a really important thing to keep in mind, as it'll give us not only an idea of where these last endgame fights are going to be, but how we're going to get there and what fights are going to be crucial to determine who makes it in. TSM, we're taking some shots up at NRG and have actually forced this powerhouse squad around the side of this mountain and directly into the backs of esports arena right ahead of them. Those two teams likely going to clash as this next zone closes, perhaps to destructive measures, as it could be a casual fire at each other from a distance, or it could be an all-out wipe of one of our squads that has either taken out 2 teams so far or is literally NRG.
Yeah, and it's crazy because we know that there's so much talent, there's so much firepower on both of those squads. So when those squads clash, you really never know. It comes down to that 3v3, and it looks like now might be the moment. The engage might be coming through. NRG looking for that space, looking for that opening damage with that Rolling Thunder. I'm actually not sure if that's a friendly Rolling Thunder. Yes, it is, and it doesn't actually find much for them.
Instead, just a zoning ult in this case. And while I've used that term jokingly in the past when referring to defensive bombardments, this time it does actually work quite well. The fact that NRG didn't get any damage off that isn't the worst thing in the world, because what they got, they will happily take. Space. This little bit, this sliver of zone in round 2 is priceless to a team that wants to conserve their resources. And while they've now found a squad in their sights, it is more of a formality than anything, and something that NRG have to have expected moving around the side like they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so great to see NRG just execute these plays, because if you watch, again, you and I are very familiar with this, right? But if you watch enough of these players and of these teams, their game plans are so well designed that you're going to see them in the same places so often. Here we see NRG very often exactly right, pinging out towards the outside. They want to be the last ones on this walk up. They want to make sure their back is as clear as possible. But right now, it might be a Valcult that they opt for instead. They feel comfortable enough that they've cleared out the other squads on their backside, and now they're looking for their own spot to play.
This is 3 ults that they've expended, though, to be able to make this Valk ult work. The Bangalore ult for a little bit of space, the Seer ult buying them even more to actually pull off the Valk ult, and then the ult itself with TSM trying to fight their way in, holding off another squad. The 30-30 shots are connecting, and Imperial Hell takes down Panders, starting the end of Furia as they are eliminated in 12th place. A dominant fight from TSM.
Who needs Shattercast? So you are just one of the most incredible players on the map. Imperial Hal making it look a little too easy with that hip fire on the 30-30, and now TSM has cleared out a squad of their own that they might have been concerned with on their backside, actually just delivering loot to them. In fact, to the point where now they have a little bit more to work with on this walk-up, but they're being pressured, Dia, and much like NRG, who had to invest a lot of resources to make their rotation happen, it looks like TSM might have to do the same, and they have less to work with off the rip.
That was just disgusting. I'm still in shock, and thank you for making a coherent point while I am suffering in this psychological state, because, like you talked about, TSM's life may be coming to an end much as they put Furia in the ground. They're rotating just down to the south, and while Verhulst has a good head start, it's clear that they're not trying to Valk ult in here. Instead, they are going to be opened up on a lot of sight lines. The open ground in between them and the northernmost tip of Barometer, very difficult to pass over with just your little feetsies, but similarly, they also don't have the opportunity to really Valk ult from behind any of these rocks that are completely open to the Barometer area. Well, ESA sit comfortably there. Another squad right next door to them, maybe only 15, 20 meters away. It is going to be a battle for every inch. 11 teams left.
And you saw there that TSM actually invested their ult excel to make sure they had that Catalyst ultimate available, which again, if they don't have the Valk ultimate to force their way in through the skies, if they're running with just their feet, what better way to do it than with a Catalyst ultimate to block the sightlines that might punish you? And in fact, they get the walk up without investing that ultimate at all and start to lay down damage of their own, actually finding a knock in the process onto Jem Burton.
How is this building available? I don't even know how that's physically possible. As Esports Arena take another, what looks like physically impossible, at least physically confusing fight, they seem to be winning it. And up against Dark Zero, no less. The Volt doing some serious work at close range, and an instant disengage from the remainder of Esports Arena as they leave Naughty behind, letting TSM clean up what they started.
Oh, and that is tough. That is actually huge for Esports Arena to kick things off, turning themselves around, unfortunately, though. And now they're just having to find a place to play as a duo. And already 9 squads. This is so populated, Dia. I agree. I can't believe that building was open, but from the looks of it, it looks like a lot of these buildings are still not quite populated. That might be the saving grace for Esports Arena. We'll see how they play the rest of this game out.
TSM's late rotate up, as I did end up calling they were here, now has NRG in this position, and looking down on the rotation of TSM, a cleanup no less into one of the top squads in this lobby. NRG still fighting for that top position, and Tripods literally on top of everyone else in a very comfortable spot, despite the fact that they aren't going to have that next beacon zone. They do look really good.
I was going to say they look really good, and I have to shout out the fact that they've got 2 reds on their side and likely working towards their third. So great for Tripods. Again, they have to have a big game, but NRG, who's separating themselves from the rest of the pack, not doing too shabby themselves.
No, I like their position and being able to claim yet another small little box on the other side of this. The little zip boxes outside of Barometer. They've got the opportunity to fight here. I'll say the necessity to fight. The smokes opening up their path in. And with Gilderson's taking a route around the outside, they do have to keep their eyes on Tripods up top, who could very well spoil either team's game.
And I have to say, once NRG decides to adopt something like the Bangalore, you have to start to realize that the pick might start to be all over the place. I mean, just cycling throughout all of these teams, excuse me. You could see how many teams have added it to their composition, either in combination with the Bloodhound or with the Seer. So that might be what gets them out of dodge, but it's also what's keeping them in dodge. I think I see many Rolling Thunders in my future going their way.
Yes, the Rolling Thunders. Many in this lobby for sure. It has been a game where area denial really does prevail, and on Storm Point, It's quite useful, as I think we're getting yet another. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Like you talked about. CLG opening things up, though. Onto these boxes are having a difficult time with tripods firing down at them. SSG from the low ground as well, but that is a sick thermite to open things. Mamba not so much looking for a push here, but instead just to keep everyone at bay. Has CLG rotating around the outside with relatively few smokes left available to them. It's a matter of just dodging as many bullets as they can and whipping on the blue suedes as they move in. The opposite side of Barometer is going to be in just 30 seconds, and CLG need to somehow make their way there without being able to dip down into the water. I can't lie to you, Mello, it's looking pretty doomed, but if anybody can do it, we'll have to see how CLG navigate.
Yeah, and I think this is sometimes where your team has to realize, all right, you have to pull the KP lever, and you have to just go in and take out as much as you can. A scorched earth approach, as you might call it. CLG now looking for those kills, looking for whatever they can find on the edge of zone before it closes. Space isn't exactly that, but Mamba does find a lot of damage. They haven't found a knock yet, though, so I'm wondering if this will end up paying off at all.
CLG have the bottom side of this building, and TSM unfortunately don't get to play the game anymore, with NRG taking them out. CLG taking out some Luminosity members as well, do finally dot that I, cross that T, and send themselves forward, albeit very quickly in this game, because they've got a limited amount of time to yeet out of this building once more. Arcstar doesn't quite catch Steamy on the way out, but it does hit Mamba, slowing him down, causing him to fall, and whittling CLG down to just 2 members on this low ground. G2 is going crazy in the kill feed meanwhile, and has been knocking a member of LG even before CLG entered that building. Now they've got the opportunity to pop up to this height. It's Nano that gets gate capped off of it as G2 continue to clean house, picking up Mamba's final knock.
Yeah, and Tripods being an absolute menace here. They're up to at least 2 KP from what I can see up at the top right. And that's actually a lot more. Thank you for showing me that. As Nick Burks, I think, Jen sitting on 5 kills, I think I saw. So Tripods, in fact, just farming up this KP right now. They've worked this spot, I think, textbook, but now it's the final circle that they have to contend with. They are in a potentially winning position to look at the way this is pulling, Dia. If Tripods had a moment to shine, this is certainly it.
Oh god, that's so much damage. And it's gonna stick too. 11 seconds left. This is the final countdown. Tripods. They are gonna have a rough time deciding how on earth to come down from this building, because despite this height that they have, they've got great coverage of everyone. They will eventually have to drop down. They will eventually have to take those couple seconds of a stun. You gotta hope the team below you is just disorganized enough that you're able to take this time and make it your own. The nades not really finding purchase, but instead looking out towards the other squads that could cause them trouble. Tripods are having a little bit of difficulty identifying what their biggest threat is. CLG taken down, not going to be it. 5 teams left, and Esports Arena showing up big in game number 5.
And it's all about the timing, Dia. I mean, if there was a silver platter to be handed a game, it looks to be the case for Tripods, but look at who's directly underneath them, still has cover to work with. That is SSG. Team Liquid, one of the final squads that was scrapping their way to this final ring, is finally eliminated. Deeds trying to find those angles to eliminate Esports Arena, and now we are down to the final 2. Energy is eliminated by Space Station, and the drop is here for Tripods.
This is such a big flank from Deeds. It's opened up everybody on SSG. He trades Gent and Nick Burks for it, but it may very well be worth it. The car is working overtime in this 1v1, and it's going to be the Deeds win. Tripods clutching it out with the G7 squads. I can hear Nicewig yelling, "Ew!" from here.
Oh my, what a way to clean it up. I mean, we said it again and again. All they had to do was not choke, and they just cleaned that game up beautifully. That is a Tripods dub on the board for game number 5. And I am very terrified to see what kind of KP they were working with as well, because that was not a small number either.
That is a Deeds MVP performance in the end. So difficult to drop down from that height, but They were able to pull it off somehow, some way, in the heat of the moment, even going up 1v2. Deeds makes that difficult position from tripods, that excellent amount of KP, that much better by picking up an additional 3 for the team, as well as the first place that comes with the boost in points. This might be the game that pushes tripods into contention for first place. That's how big of a game this was.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm counting at least double-digit kills on both my hands right now. Can't even count that many. And with the win, again, huge clutch up there that needed to happen. But with that execution, you're right. I think that they're in the conversation now. And if that's a game that they can pull off on Storm Point for what seemed to be kind of middling performances thus far, they have a big game 6. They can certainly do it here. But NRG, I think, still had quite a few points picked up there on their way to that top 5 finish.
You brought it up, and I'm looking forward to it. Game 6 is right around the corner. The finale of Carnage Cup number 5, the winner to be determined after one more game. Who will claim that title? Well, we're going to answer all those questions and more when we come back. Welcome back to Carnage Cup number 5, as we are jumping into, not game number 5, that was last game, it's game number 6. It is time to throw the pedal to the metal. And before we do that, we got to check out on the scores to see who actually, with that medal, could take the number 1 spot.
Yeah, and I think if NRG were licking their lips, already feeling like they had the title in their hands, there's plenty of other factors now that are starting to make their own claim, though they remain on top with a 7-point lead over TSM, currently in 2nd place, and Complexity rounding out that top 3. Still, even though they haven't had a big win on Storm Point quite yet, they are still sitting firmly up top. But look at the middle of the pack now, Dia. There are so many squads that are well within striking distance of that top 3, and even a couple more that are still vying for a potential win for the tournament.
Certainly so. I mean, I'm looking all the way down to, I'll call it 10th. That's being a little generous, but I'll stick it there as to teams that could push themselves up to contest Complexity. And, you know, we've been here all day. We've been talking about the points, the teams, what this means, the fact that it's the 5th Carnage Cup. We haven't even mentioned the fact that these teams are walking away with real cold hard cash right now. NRG currently stands to walk away with $6K off of their performance in these 6 games alone. That's $1,000 a game if they can pull this off.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a small chunk of cash at all. I'd be very happy walking away with that for 6 games work. And there's one more game setting them apart, keeping them back from claiming that prize right now. So this last game of Storm Point, I'm not gonna lie, there's something that tells me that the W key or that left analog stick will be pressed firmly forward and down, whatever input it might be in this case. But hey, before we close out the show and close out our last game on Storm Point, got to shout out one of our associate sponsors, and that is going to be Investor. If you want to learn to invest money like no other, make sure you hop onto Investor. You get daily feedback on all your investments, your portfolio performance. There's so many fantastic tools, some of the best tools in the game to bring your investing game to the next level. So be sure to visit pks.gg/investor-ka. Again, that is pks.gg/investor-ka. And here we go, Dia, our final game of Carnage Cup number 5.
And another contest as well. Dark Zero, of course, moving into Command Center, hungry for these kills once again. But they aren't the only ones. We've also got that contest going on over by Mill between ESA and Optic. We are getting treated to some mechanically just bonkers teams going up against each other again and again on repeat here in Storm Point, and Optic, for the moment, are not in a bad position. They've got purple, blue, Havoc, Wingman, and that's just one of their members. Skittle Cakes confidently taken up to the top of the roof, and Noct and Duplex following right behind. It is more than likely that Esports Arena have disengaged at this point, sniffing out that purple as we get that scan right back. I am put in my place. Esports Arena are not giving up this fight.
And already they're seeing blues onto Noct. And I was going to say, I wish you could just go in the range and get really good at getting good loot. It seems like Optic has done a great job of that here. They have a purple mag on one of their flatlines as well. Purple shield on Skittle Cakes. Great high ground positioning as well. But it looks like there's a purple shield to answer. The hip fire from Skittle Cakes is going to get them very low. But that headshot out of pocket and out of the game is at least one member right now of Esports Arena. But Duplex getting knocked in return.
Full thirst on Capra, so still this res available. We're waiting with our highlights. We can tell there's still a member waiting to drop down of Esports Arena, but they're not going to be able to interrupt this res. Instead, hoping for the re-knock as Optic stabilize around the outside. Quick shield swap for Noct as well. Now being able to hold out on this door, the defensive grab lift that Boney used so well just last game. This time has to be used to get away, and Optic's chances at 3KP, they are not going to let go easily. In the meantime, Command Center is lit up. Esports Arena are down, and Dark Zero want to push yet another squad out. 100 Thieves desperate for their chance to reclaim their POI, with Jen Burton already so low.
And I'm wondering if this is a sign of things to come. If so, it's going to be critical, not just to pick up the KP, but also the POI win. A big trade here. 2 members down, I believe, for 100 Thieves. That's 2 members down for Dark Zero. And I believe we're down to a 1v1. No thirst found yet. Sharky falling so low, trying to use the Bangalore smokes to find a little bit of space, a little bit of time to hit these shield cells, to maybe hit some of these flesh meds that they have in their pocket as well. But this is such a tight engagement. They have the med kit, and that's big.
Yeah, pulling off a medi right now gives you such a health advantage, even with heals being popped on the other side. Half a clip on the Volt and a little more on the flat line means that this close range fight should go Sharky's way. Whipping around the corner, it's do or die, and Dark Zero 2 taking out 100 Thieves for the last time today.
Oh, that is a huge way to polish off the drop for game number 6 here. The Carnage Cup will see DZ potentially playing out this mid game, but right now we're going to pop over to Optic. They've eliminated Esports Arena, but now they have at least one more team to deal with before they can sit comfortably near their own POI. They've got 3 purples to do it though, so again, if you're crying, might as well do it in a Ferrari, as I said before. Yeah. But I mean, right now they're comfortable, not too much pressure here. They have 3 KP under their belts, so Optic might be looking down at a potentially very comfortable game 6.
This dark veil that pushed them back, not so scary now, as they'll be able to make their way a little further north shortly. We know from our map view, thank you observers, that Down Beast completely empty. Everyone instead piling into North Pad, and I'm glad we get a North Pad final zone, because as our 6th game, the kinds of I'll say, varied zone endings that we can get in North Pad are going to be really entertaining to watch these teams adjust to. You can pull out into the open. You can come straight to this building. You can go wherever your heart imagines. And Team Liquid are praying that it comes here. But even so, North Pad is so unpredictable. This building is so hard to hold that variation is going to be the real twister in this game. The chance for all these teams to be able to, on a dime, change what they're doing and adjust to perhaps the team on high ground putting up a little bit more damage than they thought, being pushed from the low ground, having to play in the open water where tridents are going to be so important.
And again, shout out to our wonderful observers for reading my mind. Guard is another team that I'm not surprised to see very early on this rotation. And NRG holding out on the almost northernmost tip of this launch pad, or this north pad, excuse me, just hanging out for now. They are going to have to make do with these resources for the entire game, Dia. This is going to be a very difficult ordeal for them, but for the time being, they're going to poke for damage. They're going to try and get those evos up. Meanwhile, Furia, who again, very absent from our end games, is already taking out G2 on their way here, and this ring is pulling towards the north, which means that their walk-up will be just a touch easier.
Yeah, especially if you are running Valk and are somebody that runs, or rather that lands in the north, you just get so much value out of that pick. NRG, being one of our teams to run Valkyrie, now sitting outside, don't have that same luxury. Not a lot of verticality in the position that they've chosen to play over by North Pad, and so while I do like their position, and while Valkyrie is absolutely worth it for most teams, it's not going to be as impactful to NRG's game now. From here on out, it's going to be mostly Sweet and Nathan, whose Legends will be putting in overtime to keep everyone safe.
Yeah, and yeah, you always have to comment a little bit on the fact that when you're super early to a spot with that Valkyrie, the utility of that character can certainly feel like it falls off when your ultimate is essentially no longer on the table for use. There are very few case scenarios where you want the Valkyries when you're already in a decently comfortable spot for your end game. And of course, those rockets can help, but with the prevalence of the Watson, I mean, half the time those are flying and immediately disappearing as they reach your opponent. So the utility falls off a little bit. NRG, again, will just have to make do with what they've got. While some of the other teams like Furia, we know that they actually don't like to run that Valkyrie. They are one of the early adopters of that Bangalore Blood Horizon pick. I'm not sure if they picked it here, but in the case that they did, if they're able to make their way into that late game, that is a very dangerous combination for those 3v3s.
Oxygen looking down at Millage right now, have the opportunity to pick up a few more KP themselves. You talked about it just before this game, but it's time for that pedal to the metal, heavy W key playstyle, and Oxygen are trying to give that to us right now to secure as many points as they can. It's a risk, to be sure, but one that right now is working out in their favor. Protectable does trade positively for the moment, pushing up onto this high ground a little bit harder, and Caselos even getting pushed back by that Havoc, instead needing to cover all their angles with this car, these short-range SMGs that they are using to the best of their ability up against LG.
And LG now gets that walk up with the scan, which can be so massive for this 3v3. Nice hip fire. The 30-30 hip fires today are just blowing teams up. Even though they do lose Yanya, they might have the upper hand on this fight. They haven't cleaned it up quite yet. And with how, balanced drop shields are, this other squad is able to hold on for dear life just a moment longer. Actually enough to swing onto LG again.
Oxygen still have both members, LG as well. This fight, though, is going on for way longer than either squad has anticipated. And LG need to either finish or be finished now. Jaguares wins that 1v1, hits the wall bounce, but doesn't quite get the crack as Oxygen do finally win this 3v3, and just in time as well. Reset coming in, and we didn't see any third parties just yet. We'll keep our eyes on that kill feed to see if they happen, but Dark Zero, seeing if they can grab a little more KP themselves, are fully nading out the bottom of the wall.
Yeah, right now they have a lot of posturing to do. They've pushed this squad into this little bunker on the outside of wall. But take a look, they're not even the team that's furthest on the edge right now, and I do have to wonder if that might be the likes of Furia and DZ. If they're hoping to have a long game here, they've really got two options. Either you don't bother trying to take out Furia, who is easily one of the scariest 3v3 fighting teams in the game right now, or you take them out. Take them out, you clear your rotate, and you have a much easier late game if you do.
That's certainly true. Now, Tripods in front of Dark Zero are going to be the team that they have to contend with. And like you talked about, taking this gamble, right? Do you go up against a scary 3v3 fighting team? Do you leave them for the late game? Dark Zero choose to push forward, and interestingly enough, Tripods also paying that same respect to Dark Zero, get the opportunity to back off, moving their way further into a position of safety. With Dark Zero's movement towards this zone, though, the fact that they don't have Valkyrie could come back to bite them, since they will have to go through choke points. They have no other way of getting around.
Yeah, interesting walk up here. Optic has been just hanging out, trying to become the kings of this castle for these specific coordinates right now. Actually down below, down Beast are trying to take out this other squad that seems to be impeding on their reign. They managed to knock down Mamba. They are still 3 members strong, and they will have the time to reset their shields as well from the looks of it. So CLG now have to play patient and might have to just turtle this up a little bit while Optic gets to choose. They get to pick and choose whether they continue this engagement or just worry about some of the other teams that might be on their backside. For the time being, they fully push CLG away, and they continue to control this southwestern corner of the map.
When Optic are on it, you don't want to bother them, and we saw that with the clean finish right there. The coordination out of Optic is at a 10 at the moment, and if you even want a prayer of taking them down, you gotta wait till late game to see if that cools down. Optic, I would not describe as a momentum-based team, but that doesn't mean that they can't make good use of getting going in the early game. As all the best teams in Apex are aware, the ability to put down a big numbers win means so much, especially in tournaments like these. As Dark Zero look for the big numbers of their own, they will get slowed up a bit by their own Rolling Thunder, but ultimately are able to make use of it, much like NRG did last game, to claim space in front of them.
Yeah, and I like how you said it. I feel like your League of Legends comes out a little bit sometimes. Zoning ult, right? Sometimes that's all it takes. It's not a whiffed ult. It's just a zoning ult. And they're using essentially that. If there was a team that might be posturing up on them to get aggressive, they can very easily clear them out of the way for their walk-up to be a little bit safer. And while it may seem like they control a lot of space after they did that, there are so many angles that they can get LOS'd and shot from right now, though. They're definitely answering back. Jem Burton not too shabby with the G7 right now.
One of the things that I like that you highlighted there is that, yes, while they got a little bit for their trade, that bit that they got isn't particularly valuable. It's not in zone. It's not a god spot. It's not even going to be useful for cutting off other teams from their rotation into zones. So squads like NRG, TSM, who are already in the center of where the zone is pulling, NRG actually right around the outside, do have a much better time, and those two squads are the ones that we have to keep track of because they're the ones fighting for first place right now.
And NRG, our current first place, I guess, holders as per the end of game 5 are still here. They're still chilling. They're holding on to as many resources as possible. I do have to wonder whether finally a team will opt to get aggressive. Meanwhile, though, OXG, the team that looks to get aggressive against the likes of Optic, and we talked about how good Optic can be when they're coordinated, but when OXG is coordinated, it might be just as dangerous, though this is the problem. They did not control the entirety of the edge of the zone, and now they are potentially on the back foot of an edge team farming their way in.
That kill on Oi Senpai, that thirst, it's gonna happen. Optic, in the meanwhile, eliminated before CLG, who are currently picking up kills right now in a crazy turn of events. Sentinels start to pick up kills, taking out even members of Dark Zero who are firing back. Zero taking out Senox, full thirsting him, picking up even more kills, but ultimately isn't enough to get them into the top couple squads. Dark Zero are down, and it's Sentinels Royals that are having the game of a lifetime right now. Surely it cannot be lost on them that they've just taken out two of the biggest contenders in this lobby.
Complexity still in the conversation. Team Liquid still in the conversation, though right now OXG might be losing their spot in that conversation. They are eliminated almost simultaneously with Sentinels, so now we are down to 10 squads, and there's actually an engage here that might be the likes of FaZe with that bubble, and yes indeed, Slurp with the knock onto Nano. Dimmy, the last one standing, and CLG is wiped from the map as well.
Doesn't quite hit that shield slump like they wanted, but FaZe doesn't get the chance to reset either. With tripods pushing up on them, this one's going to be a fight for the history books. Tripods are angling this out. Gent this time has such a sick flank and is joined even by Nick Mercs, but Deeds gets fried on top and is eating shots from above. The knock comes through in the favor of Tripods, but these knockdown shields into Caustic are difficult to play around. Slurp gets taken down. Tripods eat that little bit of extra damage, and Gent falls as well. FaZe finally knocked out of the game. 8 squads left. Tripods resetting. TL with a Kraber, and the game continues to accelerate.
And with a little bit of long-range help from NRG, they're actually helping Tripods out for that last little push that they needed. But you can already see here, NRG, I have a feeling that they might be running low on those meds, and they're already starting to ping out what they need to do to potentially win this game. One last bat on Guild. I think I saw 2 cells left for Sweet and potentially a couple more bats. But look at the damage they're laying out. Who needs the heal when you're the one doing all of the hurting? That they know that there's at least one more squad on their east, and that has to be dealt with sooner than later.
It is a matter of identifying the biggest threats, especially when NRG are running on low on meds as they are. I like that you highlight that because, well, it does make it, of course, the natural thing to look for more death boxes. Sometimes it's going to be more important to prioritize those squads that are a little bit, well, further away from you, but that have a better shot at endgame victory. And that's the balance that NRG have to tread right now that I'm not sure they're ready for. Team Liquid on the inside of this building playing the balancing game themselves. We knew they were going to get pushed on this low ground. They've set themselves up well for it. Gen goes down, but Sykes doesn't have fences in their favor. Instead, eating zone right now will likely get knocked to it, and Team Liquid's exodus is going to be a little too late. The play was fine, but staying there was absolutely not. TL are gone, and TSM may meet the same fate with Reps, the last one up. They're eating shots, and Dark Veil isn't providing too much safety to our Rep lad. Hal Verhulst down, Dark Veil eliminated. He dips right back into the zone, trying to find some safety, and this position is going to be what TSM need to stay ahead of NRG.
Yeah, and have to hurt a little bit for Team Liquid there. SSG does make the move that they needed to make, but unfortunately that means TL's game is also taken out in the process, and now Guard is going to clean up this free KP for the last member of TSM. And here we go, Dia. We get to see our final, I believe, 4 squads left on the map. We've got Tripods, we've got NRG. Complexity still in the conversation as well. And it's not looking great for Guard here. Their chances maybe staved off a little bit by their greed, looking for that last KP, but they're answering back.
Oh my gosh, the full thirsts as well, taking out 2 members of Complexity. It's almost a show really put NRG in first, and Tripods fighting up against NRG are taken out as well. We're in the top 3. NRG have all the kills in the lobby, and now are setting themselves up to absorb another push. They finally got those meds that you were asking for earlier. They have a chance at taking this end game zone, and up against the final 3 members. This last squad, it's going to be Guard versus NRG for all the marbles in this last game of the Carnage Cup.
And what a 3v3 it will be. NRG has not had the time to reset, though, and it looks like they maybe weren't gifted the meds quite in time. Sweet has a foot in the grave, but the Phoenix Kit will be just in time to pull him out. 3 red shield for the side of NRG. Not an incredible amount of ammo right now, and the charge rifle still in the hands of Sweet. Not the best weapon really for this 3v3, but look at Guard. That's 3 purples.
That smoke That smoke is big. It lets NRG wrap around, and while they get the shield cracked, they look for the kill onto RKN. That's enough for him, as out around the side, it's going to be Rambo that goes down next. Keon to follow, and NRG, by controlling these last fights, pick up the win and send themselves home as not just the victors of Game 6, but the victors of the Carnage Cup.
Just the cherry on top here for NRG. Sweet Guild and Nathan just putting a wonderful, just finishing touch to what was an otherwise fantastic Carnage Cup performance here. What a way to close out the Carnage Cup, the last Carnage Cup for 2022 with an NRG dub, both in game and in tournament. What can you say about NRG other than, wow, are they just incredible at winning tournaments that aren't necessarily in their main circuit of ALGS? They just keep doing it time and time again. Their pockets must be just overflowing with success right now.
It's funny that you bring that up, because it absolutely is the meme about NRG. They're really able to shape up for these 6-game tourneys, and I'm glad that we got to see that at least that is still true, despite their, I think what you called it at the beginning of the stream, hot and cold performances in the ALGS. NRG still got it, and coming out on top of the Carnage Cup is a really nice feather in your cap because of the caliber of this lobby. It's higher than even some iterations of being able to put together Pro League squads, because it is the top of each of those lobbies, or each of those individual groups. It's something that, like you say, we don't get any more of this year. We can all look forward to. So if you enjoyed the Carnage Cup, I would absolutely recommend following Knights Arena on Twitter.
Oh yeah, Knights Arena, and be sure to give all of our wonderful observers a thanks as well. And Dia, pleasure casting with you as always, and thank you again just to Knights. Thank you to all of our partners here for the broadcast, and thank you NRG for a fantastic showing again. Just you can't deny that they are easily one of the strongest teams still in North America, and we'll actually get to peep at the final leaderboard. We might know what the very tippity top looks like already, but we can also shout out some of the other teams that had some great success as well.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't have done this without all of the production that you talked about and the squads that play today, and all of you for tuning in. NRG 78 points on the day, pushing themselves 19 points ahead of TSM, who get second place. Not a shabby placement either, as they'll be walking away, TSM will, with $3,000, and Guard coming in third. Squeeze into that $1,000 prizing by a single point ahead of Complexity. The squad that picked up 2 wins at the start of the day pushed out of prizing entirely. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, I really didn't either. It was a race to the finish, photo finish for sure. And Complexity also had a great set of games. Again, it's hard to shout out all of these squads when so many of them put on great performances. But again, it's about the consistency. It's about doing it across a 6-game series, not just once. And unfortunately, not even just twice. Two wins just isn't enough from the way we saw the math break down. But hey, just huge performances from so many of these squads, and this is a great this just gets me so much more excited for the rest of the ALGS, and really just the rest of year 3, where these squads will continue to mature, to get better, and continue to find new picks. Nudge nudge, the Catalyst looking kind of good in some of those scenarios. Nudge nudge.
Yeah, I mean, Catalyst is clearly becoming a favorite in the NAALGS, and that's after its not even resurgence, but pickup across all of the regions globally. NA are really accepting and making good use of it, and I was happy to see that today. We got to really witness the continuation of so many of these teams' hero stories. And like you talked about, these small storylines that are coming together. Who's going to come up? Who's going to, like Complexity, perhaps be on their Team Liquid arc? Those are the things that we get to track here at the Carnage Cup. Like you said, 5 of them already. And we can look for even more of these snapshots of Apex history throughout the next couple months.
Yeah, I can't wait. And Dia, it's been an absolute pleasure to join you on the mic. I won't get to catch you for this next set of games. For those of you who don't know, this man is putting in 18 games in 12 hours. So Dia, doing the Lord's work right now. Make sure that you guys hop on over to Torch Prod over on Twitch after this in about looking like 50 minutes, where we will actually be covering Challenger Circuit number 2 for North America as well. We'll actually get to see, I think, one, if not two players from the Carnage Cup actually on over there, which is pretty cool. I didn't expect to see that, but yeah, a whole bunch more Apex left for anyone watching. And yeah, I hope you guys will tune in. Thank you to Knights. Thank you to all of our presenting sponsors. Thank you to the teams, our production staff behind the scenes that are making this all happen. Thanks to everyone watching. You are what makes this worth it. And we will certainly catch you in the next Carnage Cup here at the Knights Arena.